Hello, everyone. It is Tuesday, the 20th of February, 2024. Tuesday. And then it's February, which is the second month. And then we've got the 2024. So a lot of twos in there. Not as many, obviously, that's going to be on the 20th of February. I'm not saying that, but still a lot of twos nonetheless. I'm going to do something differently. I used to do this on my social media, but historical events, on this day in history, I take with a grain of salt, really take with a grain of salt, really like a lot of the shit is bullshit, but at least it makes you understand the narrative and the possibility of how long the narrative has been going on. So historical events on this day. In 1792, U.S. postal service created, postage 6 to 12 cents depending on distance. 1872, New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art opens. I do believe that these museums, this infrastructure, these facilities that they claim or refound or reestablish, rediscover, are ancient buildings that were created before even what we're claiming to be the indigenous peoples, that predate us. There were others before them that possibly created this infrastructure. It could be the Tartarians, the barbarians, whatever you want to call them, and not who we think it is, right? So like not who we think. And also an interesting note that even for people that came from Europe and other areas of the world, they re-inhabited, I will reiterate that, they re-inhabited North America, what do you want to call Turtle Island as well, as early as the 1200s, right? So that's a long time ago. And so who's considered indigenous if you have family lineage, even if you came from, Europe, for example, 800 years ago to Canada? Like, I consider myself indigenous Canadian, and I consider my family to be indigenous Canadian, even though there have been peoples that have lived here through various resets and cycles, again, even that predate even 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago. So again, like what we're trying to do now with like these like land grabs and everything, it's another psyops by design to deceive us into giving up more of our land, more of our rights, more of our roads, more of our freedom, for convenience. And the convenience is that's being sold to us is profiting a bunch of people that are already rich elitists. And unfortunately, especially in the last couple of decades, people that are dictating the rules of scripts internationally, they're in their own lives, very sick in their own lives. And I'm going to give you an example of how sick they are. And we've propped up Carl Jung, we've propped up Freud. Again, this is propaganda. People that are propping these people up and making these people famous, like not Chris Hawkins, but Stephen Hawking's, not an actual scientist, physicist, like none of those things. He was used as a ploy to tug at our hearts and minds and look at someone that was disabled, clearly disabled, like the man was disabled, whoever it is, but he's an actor being exploited. He's vulnerable. I don't even think he has the capacity, or he did, obviously, to have informed consent, and absolutely someone that was, because of stuff that he was doing, even as a disabled person. And so even with the Queen, the Pope, these are people that are like, these are symbols that are symbolic or represent virtue, but behind that's people that create these symbols that are not good people, and they're using it to also exploit our naivety and get us to willingly do things that they want us to do, where it doesn't have to be necessarily as difficult as it used to be in the Dark Ages, where they had to be a lot more aggressive and violent. And so known as Netflix, I'm not in agreement with this title, with them saying segregating a specific group and blaming them, because I'll reiterate, anyone that believes that the tiny hats or Jewish people are responsible for all the crime and what's going on in the world, the corruption in the world, you're out of your fucking mind. All right. And this is another reason why in the Trudeau community, I'm not getting the invites that I was getting, even though there was discussions happening. It's been a few weeks or even months in some cases, and people are not following up. I consistently follow up at least every once a week to see like where it's at. And this is another reason. It's like people are getting duped, right? And there are people that are within even the Baptist, community, and within Islam, within Buddhism, you friggin' name it. Like, I don't know how much more I have to reiterate this and explain this, right? These people are using cults. They're using religions. They're using a cult groups or mystical groups or whatever you want to call it. And there's all these scripts and narratives for these different groups that people are creating for these puppets, right? So even people within the Millionaire Billionaire Club, unfortunately, there are puppets as well, are naive, like not realizing like all the LARPing, live action role playing, and like the hand gesture that they do, like they think it's so cool. I'm part of a cool club. You look like a fucking loser. And you're being duped by people that are like, they're like, look at these fucking idiots. Like, this is like, you're LARPing. You're grown ass men in a men only group because like you're a sun worshiper and you think, and you're misrepresenting or you're misinterpreting astrotheosophy. And so like you look even more ridiculous to people like me that are just like, wow. And like, and Satan worshippers and Lucifer worshippers, I'm like, you're worshiping luminaries above us that create the toroidal fields that contain this environment and make this reality. And sustain the light and motion that we're, which is how we're experiencing this earth plane. And so when you segregate or isolate one specific group where there's obviously going to be emotional reaction or responses, they're winning. And it's so boring that they're using the same friggin' group. Okay. Again, with Jewish people, it's like I was saying, it's a Jewish psyops. I'm like a Jewish psyops. I'm like, it's not. And that's why even with, a few other people, I don't want to offend. I don't mean to offend because these are brilliant people and I like their work. But when they say things like the tiny hats or Jewish people are running the world and stuff like that and responsible for everything that's going on in every friggin' country, I'm like, you're absolutely incorrect. And I can prove this consistently with the people that are elected officials that are doing a lot of shitty things, the human trafficking, the drug cartel stuff, even the lower level stuff. They're not Jewish people. Okay, some are, some are claiming they are, or within that group. Okay, and that's why even years ago they said that the best way to effectively control people is to do it from within, and to give people the symbol or the character, the hero within the enemy's script. And so it's working. It's working because like everyone's all fucking focused on this group of people, and they're not looking anywhere else. And so it is what it is. And I'll just carry on because I just wanted to get that out of the way. I don't want people to think that like I'm like anti-Jewish person at all. I'm not. And just because I'm speaking out on what's going on with Israel and Palestine, I'm talking about a genocide that's going on. Okay, there's no like they're not fighting an enemy right now. Okay, do you hear like all these Hamas like soldiers and people dead? No, you're hearing that women and children are dead. That's who you're hearing are dead. They're not fighting the fucking IDF. I'm sharing crimes against humanity being committed under the guise of fucking retaliation or whatever you're going to call it, or protection or self-defense. Billions of dollars getting funneled into an area that's a strategic stronghold for the military industrial complex, pharmaceutical industrial complex as well, if you want to add that in, for shipping and trade routes to get access to the oil, billions of dollars of oil just off the fucking coast of Palestine. And then also the project Neom, okay, that also is in the region, like to the east, southeast, whatever you want to call it, or in that region where there are also billionaires from that, like the Middle East included, that are shooting indigenous peoples within those communities because they want to make this 170-kilometer wide, 15-minute or 5-minute prison slave city for people to occupy. And they're saying that it's carbon neutral and stuff like that. When it's ridiculous, right? Because the people that they're going to be putting in there, it's just like zoos. It's zoos. These 15-minute prisons that people even in Canada are creating, even in Ottawa, they're making zoos for people. And so I have more respect for people that are OnlyFans and prostitutes than I do for the guys that are shredding the fucking trees and the heritage sites and the national parks and poisoning the fucking rivers and the air. And thinking they're not. Oh, these are healthy. Aluminum and silver dioxide and all the other fucking heavy metals for decades being dropped on people, being dispersed is it's okay. And our Air Force, by the way, and I have this now on the record, an access to information request was submitted for our Air Force within Canada. And the information that came back from the Ethos and Eris show, he was the one that showed this, so I got to prop him up. But they claimed that. So if you're not aware or you're going to lie on the record, I am going to attempt to sue the government even more, especially Wayne Air, because if you're going to like allege that you have no involvement with like the dispersal systems that's going on with countless aircrafts a day within Canada, all over the fucking country, because like my contacts are east to west and north, like even the Yukon, even Newfoundland, and PEI, like all over. And they're also saying that people are getting pushed out. There's like insurance companies now are like fucking vultures, increasing taxes and stuff like that. It's like people, and there are people from other countries as well that are taking over what used to be Canadian, even our insurance companies, and they're being run and operated out of other countries. So even RBC Insurance, house insurance and home insurance, they sold that to Aviva, that's run out of Nevada, and don't give a fuck about Canadians, and that's why everything goes up. That's why people within Canada, like there has to be the people that lead within Canada. They have to, if you're in cabinet, you have to live in the fucking city, in my humble opinion, and be a regular member of cabinet and do your fucking work, or work from home, but put the fucking work in. like the work that I do every single day, like 7 days a fucking week for years. The people in cabinet, the 338 fucktards that are way underqualified, too underqualified, and brainwashed to be in the positions they're in, they need to all be fired and arrested in jail, because ignorance is not an excuse. They've committed crimes against humanity, and they're lying to Canadians and to people internationally about world events and false flags. They're a danger to our society, and I'm going to finally get to it. But the reason why they are is because sick people are leading us into a fucking collapse.
The father of psychoanalysis. Sigmund Freud, known as the father of psychoanalysis.
And so I'm not even going to
Sigmund
attack.
Freud claims
There's the Freemasons too that are good people, but some of them are disgusting human trafficking, drug trafficking, pedivores. Allegedly.
Molested all
like
of his siblings. Freud was a cocaine addict, as well as a pedophile advocate, who taught that children, known as the father of psychoanalysis. Sigmund Freud claimed his father molested all of his siblings. Freud was a cocaine addict, as well as a pedophile advocate, who taught that children sexually lived after their parents, and that children reported sexual abuse by adults that either imagined or fantasized the experience.
Everyone loves this guy.
He believed that women were the problem with society, and all their problems stemmed from not having a penis. Freud's grandson.
So I'm gonna play that back too, because Freud was not only a pedophile and a groomer and disgusting, was law and psychology courses and stuff like that with childhood psychology. I've taken childhood development and psychology as part of like my science degree as well, advanced stuff. This guy's a fucking sick idiot, and he was also he also hated women. And he also like a lot of people that with these male only groups that are misinterpreting the luminaries. The sun is a masculine, positive, radiating magnetic energy, luminary, whatever you want to call it. People misinterpret that as so anyone that follows the luminaries as part of their worship or their religion, because that the sun is masculine means that only men are like men are superior, when the moon is equally as relevant and valid. Like you can't experience light without darkness, and even with the moon, it is a luminary as well, and it also emits a feminine, cooling, negative gravitational energy. And just because of the wording, negative and positive, people correlate it with being good or bad. It's not the fucking case at all. It's experiencing this cosmos in duality, and you need to have that harmony and that balance. So when you're excluding 50% of the fucking energy that you need to experience duality, what do you think is going to happen in these fucking groups? They get perverted, they get disgusting, way more predators, and look at every fucking species in society. If you want to of this, right? When it's hyper masculine or hyper feminine, I'm going to argue as well, but especially hyper masculine, because men are stronger on average on the behavioral spectrum as well. Okay, the people that commit more rapes, more crimes that are where there's anger and aggression and violence involved are men. Still, largely, you're not going to fucking get me on that, because that's a fact, and I have a lot more research on this than a lot of people, except for on this channel. Like most people, when I look at the demographic, are over the age of 35, and people that have multiple degrees or academics. And so I'm not talking about anyone watching this specifically. I'm just saying in general, on average, if that makes any sense. And so, yeah, this woman hating shit's been going on for years. And this is why even men I know that are academics, they have this this superiority complex. And it's why? Why? Because you're misinterpreting astrotheosophy yourself, or not even looking at it.
Penis. He believed that women were the problem with society, and all their problems stemmed from not having a penis. Freud's grandson, Sir Clement Freud, has been accused of molesting multiple young girls and was suspected in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. Sigmund Freud's sister, Anna Freud, whom Freud claimed was regularly molested and abused by their perverted father, gave birth to Freud's nephew, Edward Bernays, the father of propaganda. Bernays took his family's work in psychology and used it to help governments and corporations manipulate the minds of the public. Hired by the American Tobacco Company, Bernays manipulated women into buying more cigarettes by convincing them that smoking was a form of feminist liberation.
They said it didn't
During this
fertility.
propaganda campaign, he dubbed cigarettes torches of freedom. Thanks to Bernays and his family's twisted legacy, social engineering became big business. Modern psychology was used to exploit mankind's mental weaknesses, nurture the public's lower desires, and turn people into mindless consumers. Is it any surprise then that the great nephew of Edward Bernays is none other than Mark Bernays Randolph, the co-founder and original CEO of Netflix? Does anyone really think this is a coincidence? Netflix has not only replaced network television as the premier home of pop culture, it is also continuing the degenerate, depraved social engineering of the Bernays-Freud legacy. In 13 Reasons Why, Netflix was accused of romanticizing suicide during a recent increase of teenage suicides. In The Devil Next Door, they were accused of rewriting history to deceive viewers into believing that Poland was responsible for establishing Nazi death camps. In The First Temptation of Christ, Jesus Christ is depicted as a homosexual. And a Texas grand jury indicted Netflix for depicting child sex in the movie Cuties. Netflix and chill, the new preferred method for brainwashing the masses. Brought to you by one of the most depraved, degenerate families of the modern era.
So my ex-boyfriend was on the fucking Tinder, and government employee and stuff like that too, and just to be like the professional, like alpha male types. Not a bit. He was big into Netflix and chill when we were in a relationship together, and so two roommates that were living with him also in the government, because again, like the cost of living in Canada has gotten insane, told me that it was at least between 30 to 40 women in our relationship that he would Netflix and chill with. So a lot of people are eating up the fucking Netflix propaganda psyops shit. Like even the academics, like this, like the Freud stuff, like especially men, they're like, oh yeah, like men are the best. Men are superior than women. Cool. Like I'm gonna fucking, like I'm sticking with this.
The modern era. Turn it off and wake up.
Yeah, so there's a lot of grooming going on in these in social media, Disney included, and so this has nothing to do with any specific friggin' religion at all. There are gross people that are exploiting religions. They're exploiting social media. They're exploiting cabinet people. They're exploiting the average fucking worker. Grooming, all right? It's part of the campaign, and it's been going on now for generations. And so it's way before Netflix too, for example. Like, so even with Freud, right? Like he predates friggin' Netflix by like 100 years or so. And I do want to talk now about a few things. I don't know how long this video is going to be. I don't care. But because I'm in Canada right now, and I've also been saying this for friggin' a while, people are like, even Anomaly yesterday or the day before, he also has great work. I keep on trying to like get on his friggin', like I messaged him. I want to get on his show so we can, or not even get on his show, but just chat about so many different things. But he was saying in his video that like people don't migrate from colder areas. They don't go to colder areas. And I was saying in a video like last week or a few days ago, very recently, that I'm sharing footage of people that are coming in and they're getting transported to northern America, but like in the northern regions of the country of the country of America, whatever you want to call it. And and also coming through Canada, and also immigrants within Canada that are staying here because people like anomaly, even smart people are like, oh, people will never like they never go from travel in colder areas because it's just too cold. And I'm like, that's exactly. I was even saying this like last week or whatever it was. Like that's exactly why they're doing it, because everyone, even the smartest of the smart people, are saying like, oh yeah, people are never going to come in from the colder regions and try to survive the colds of Canada or of Northern America, the Northern American state. And I'm like, yeah, they're doing it. And there's like aerial footage, there's infrared cameras and stuff like that. Like they're showing it, right? Like these, like they're even in national park areas hunkered in. They're making their own campsites and stuff like that. And they're getting funded and transported here from government and corporations that work with government, that the government's supporting. Not the government like that I'm involved in.
Let's talk about what's happening at the U.S. border. Something we've been warning about here on this show now, I think months, of course, we've been talking about.
And even with Freud and other people like of high rank and prestige, they are in all departments and agencies, ladies and gentlemen, and their family and hurt people. So like we have people that are wealthy, that have a lot of assets, that have a lot of pull, that have a lot of like assets, including contacts internationally, like a lot of resources, and they're also people that have been victimized even within their own lives and brainwashed and groomed growing up into having a really twisted, perverted version of reality. And even Biden, I'm absolutely putting him in this category as well. Even having showers with his daughter when she was 13, and her not wanting that and being uncomfortable, and his son having him in his phone as pedo Pete, and Justin Trudeau, even when he was a part-time drama teacher, even Pierre Poilievre suggested and hinted at it in cabinet. But why did you get fired as a part-time drama teacher, Justin Trudeau? Is it because you possibly impregnated a minor and signed up and had all like lawyers and stuff like that lawyered up and paid her off and all this stuff? Like this stuff comes out. Okay. And this was decades before he became our prime minister. So the disgusting people that voted him in or didn't know any better, I'm not saying disgusting because you didn't know, but you didn't know because you weren't doing it. And people especially the older generations need to stop. You need to stop blindly looking at mainstream media news outlets and thinking that your outlet is the right one out of the two, right? Because in Canada, since the early, since the 1800s, when people established more of the mainstream media and the two political parties, again, this is during this reset, there was two political parties and there was two mainstream media outlets. This was for a reason. I've said this for years, even before talking about flat earth stuff. And, or maybe around the same time, because again, I've only started talking about all of this in general since 2021, 2020, but I don't even know where we're going with this stuff.
Of illegal immigrants pouring across the southern border, but not the northern border, of course. The southern border has gotten all of the attention, but Canada, no. The U.S.-Canadian border is seeing a massive influx of border crossings over the past few months. In 2022 alone, we saw a 200% increase in crossing from Canada into the United States. 200% increase over 2021 numbers. Now that number is up 700%. Listen.
Cool.
Let's go to the U.S. northern border with Canada, where U.S. officials report a growing number of migrants crossing into the country. One sector of the tri-state area says there has been a 743% increase in illegal border crossings in the last year and a half. NBC's Julia Ainsley is reporting live from the northern U.S. border. Good morning. What are you hearing there?
Well, Jose, you don't usually see me in a climate like this. I'm usually talking to you from the southern border, but I'm up here in Plattsburgh, New York, where state police took us up to the northern border with Canada, showed us around, and they say that even though the numbers are nothing like what they're seeing at the southern border, they've gone up from between October and January from 150 migrants to over 1,500 just in this area alone.
Yeah, just in this area alone. And so...
And
in the snow.
Anyone that's listening to this incognito, I would highly encourage you to look at the coast, more specifically the West Coast, and look at the tiny islands that are around Alaska, British Columbia, and Washington, because there's a lot of immigrants being going through that area as well, and there are airports all over Canada in remote locations that people are not even fucking tracking like they should be tracking. And there are a lot of people that are coming in and out from these locations as well. And then being transported to various locations from there. And it's not Canadians doing this. Right? And any Canadian involvement, it would be a small amount in comparison to the amount of people that are controlling and coordinating all this stuff that are not Canadian at all. And some of these people are other government.
In snow, they're
hired by our
right
government.
The snow, it doesn't matter.
But not officially government, but like corporations and or workers or teams or agencies that are here dispatched. You wouldn't believe it.
Leaves on the trees, it doesn't matter. It's coming at all times. And so now what's going on here? How are they skipping over the United States in order to illegally enter the United States? Like coming from Mexico, hopping over the United States in order to enter into the United States. Like it really kind of confounds the brain. Well, it turns out if you have a little bit of money, you avoid all the problems that you get coming into the United States through the southern borders, through Arizona, through Texas. Instead, fly into Ottawa, fly into Toronto, fly into Montreal, and then scurry down across the massive 5,000 mile long border between the United States and Canada. And no, these aren't Canadians. I saw some people on the chat saying, stop those Canadians from coming in. No, we love the Canadians. It's not Canadians that are coming in legally, crossing at border crossings. No, it's Mexicans. Mostly Mexicans who can then travel visa free. Here's the rub, right? Under Trudeau's government.
I don't like the way you just said that. No, we love Canadians. It's Mexicans. Like we don't like Mexicans. Yes,
no, I said we like legal immigration. I said I didn't say we don't like Mexicans. I didn't say we don't like Mexicans.
No, but the way you just said that, you're like, it's not Canadians. We love Canadians.
No, I was making a joke. People in the chat were saying, yeah, keep those Canadians out. Meaning, no, that the invasion is coming from Canada.
Okay,
they're not
but
Canadians.
You see how that comes off?
I get the point, but my point is they're coming across legally. If Canadians are coming across the border legally at checks at border crossings and they're showing proper paperwork.
But let's turn our nose up at Canadians who are coming illegally too.
Yes, if you are an illegal Canadian coming across the border, I would have a problem with that as well.
Okay, good.
But that's not who's coming across.
All right, it has nothing to do with nationality. It has to do with legal
exactly.
status.
Yeah, in part. But yeah, anyway, back to yes, they're mostly coming from Central and Southern America and Latin America.
Men and women, again, they're gonna have an argument about this because again, like we're more concerned about people.
I'm making the point that they're coming across. If they're coming across legally, that's okay. We have legal processes for that. But if you're coming through the woods and you're coming illegally up from Latin America somehow, and you're coming into the United States illegally, and you're hiding using a coyote to come in the United States, that's a problem.
Yeah, like the dude who attacked Pelosi. Was an illegal Canadian.
Yes, he's an illegal Canadian.
He is.
Yes,
we don't like that guy.
We don't like that illegal Canadian.
As much as anybody else who's doing illegal activity and is an illegal person.
That could have been
right?
Exactly.
Don't come across illegally
and beat up Nancy Pelosi.
Beat up Paul Pelosi with a hammer. Don't do that.
That was like possibly a false flag thing, like where there was like a relationship where
exactly?
And then it just got weird.
Don't do that. Period.
Don't do that. Period. Nationality doesn't matter at all.
Right.
Hit Paul Pelosi with a hammer.
Don't
if you're
come
American.
illegally and attack people with hammers.
But don't
I
do
think
that.
we learned a lot here.
Especially Canadians.
Especially Canadians.
You guys, okay.
Mexicans.
I'm leaving.
You're fine. All right, let's get back to the story here because this is crazy. If you're a Mexican, then you don't need a visa right now under Trudeau's government. So you're allowed to travel visa free into Canada. This was part of the relaxing of the rules under the Trudeau government. So you're able to hop over the United States, get into Canada, and what a lot of these reports and whether it being able to speak to these illegal, we don't have to deal with all of the hassle then at the southern border. We don't have to deal with barbed wire fences. We don't have to deal with the trauma of then, sleeping on floors at some sort of holding center if they're held. They don't have to deal with any of that. They get to go right into Canada and they can come right across the border and then they're disappear into the United States. Many of them winding up, of course, in New York City in luxury hotels.
But they're also going into these camps, these encampments and stuff like that people are building and creating in and around national parks and other areas as well.
And being put up and provided 3 meals a day with money, cell phones, the stipend that they can live. So, you know, it's sunny, right? It's beautiful for them to be able to do that. And where is this money coming from? These flights, though. So if you just have a little bit of money, you can spend $300 on a flight, hop over the United States and come into the United States, fly right into Canada, and then be bussed when you're inside the United States anywhere you want inside the US. Who's paying for this? NGOs. And like the IOM, of course, is paying for the buses and flights for illegal immigrants coming up through Panama and the like. So who exactly is funding these flights? We don't know.
People are coming from
I
Europe
hope we get to the bottom of that. I'd love to know if the IOM is funding these flights
all
also out of Mexico,
Yeah.
straight up to Canada. Then they come across the border. That would be amazing, because then you would be paying for this. And of course, the United Nations wants this to happen. This is part of the United Nations program at the IOM to handle this migration effort out. They've doubled now the size of their contingency
Nice little logo there.
down in Panama through the Darien Gap, making sure that buses are provided, luxury buses, ferreting people right up to the United States, provided by the United Nations. And they're coming across the border, as we know, because U.S. taxpayers are footing the bill to pay for their second leg of their journey. According to Reuters, many of these illegal aliens then are put on chartered flights paid for by Customs and Border Protection and flown to Texas. So how is this now? They're coming across the border. They're then caught by Customs and Border Protection that you're paying their salaries, and then they're chartering flights, according to Reuters, and then ferreting these people down to Texas. Here, I'll just read from the Reuters report. Reuters learned of the flights from Thomas Cartwright, an advocate with the group Witness at the Border, who tracks U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement charter flights, which were used to move the migrants. Cartwright said, given the relatively high cost of the flights, it appeared that they were intended as a deterrence and to send a message. I want to ask all of you watching right now, does it seem like the deterrence is working? Like, how is this a deterrence? Can anyone weigh in and tell me in the chat room or here on this show how this would be a deterrence? That they would be flown out of this area, flown away from the Canadian border, and that would somehow send a message to them down in Mexico or other places?
I don't get it.
How would this be a deterrence? This is literally their plan, and U.S. taxpayers are footing the bill for this deterrence.
They just make words up that they think that people will just not question, like balance, harmonize.
Can anyone help me? Anyone? How is this a deterrence?
I got nothing.
Because the now spikes 700%. So
Maybe they don't know what that word means.
that's possible. That is possible.
So I think.
So here's the front page of the New York Post, though, today, highlighting this growing problem of this Canadian break-in, as they call it. Over the past 24 hours, the Post is paying attention to the story, put together a really astonishing piece looking at the towns along the border with Canada, which are being inundated with
I'm watching this with you, by the way. This is a reaction piece again.
illegal aliens. And you have one particular area where a lot of this is being focused in Vermont, specifically the border towns in Vermont. One resident using a simple trail camera that he's able to tap into his videos here on his iPad, and he uncovered a highly sophisticated illegal smuggling operation, complete with a coyote smuggler who brings the men across, and then he goes back into Canada, and then he comes back a short time later, and he sees this guy on a regular basis on his trail cameras. He's like, yeah, there's Coyote Boy again, going back into Canada, bringing another group of like 5-10 guys back, all, by the way, all military-age men. Like no women and children in any of the footage or videos or photos that I've seen. Any of his trail cam footage, it's all men. And then they smuggle them back again. So these coyotes come over, then they go back. They come down from just south of Montreal into the United States. And it's not surprising when most of the U.S.-Canada border looks like this. Not exactly.
Well, Ottawa, Montreal, like south of where we are.
It'd be like, wouldn't be difficult to get across that. I wouldn't recommend like hopping on top of that. That would be the only deterrent. Would be like to do like like a hop and then land on that.
Well, that cautionary orange though, that's pretty intimidating. That's you're not supposed to go near that orange color.
It's very official looking.
Very official.
Watch out for that pyramid there.
Yeah, you might get a sticker in your sock from those weeds.
That's about it. Yeah, but that's what the U.S. border looks like there. The town of Swanton, Vermont, is one example. They have seen a massive influx of illegal aliens into this particular area of Vermont, which you can see how close it is to the Canadian border. And this area, which is interesting, in fact, 70% of the illegal entries are happening right now in this area of the United States border. Very interesting why this particular section. It could be, of course, that Montreal has a lot to do with
Ottawa.
it, like flights landing in Montreal.
So you've got Montreal, but then if you just go like a little bit more this way, not very like it's like 2 hours away. 2 hours like southwest, like but 2 hours west. 2 hours west is like Ottawa.
Montreal, and it's a very close then drive to Swanton, which is only a 10-minute drive there to then the border.
Yeah.
So they're all congregating right there near Lake Champlain. Here's what the New York Post has to say about this. Experts say migrants who make it to Mexico and have the money for a $350 one-way
humans have been, fun fact, not fun at all, it's terrifying, but like humans have been trafficked through that route for thousands of years. And I've made the connections with Follow the Yellow Brick Road and Route 66, where it used to connect from Santa Fe, California, all the way up through Chicago and then through Ontario. Route 66 that leads to like the 117 in Quebec. There's no mistakes in this either. 117, 7-11, September 11th. September can also be seen as they get that word from set, numero set, which is 7. So even people thinking that September is the 7th month, a lot of people, including myself, because we're thinking that the new year starts with the spring equinox. That's where I'm going with that. And so these correlations and connections with the 117 or the 7-11 and gematria or numerology, if you want to call it numerology instead, it's all connected and has been for many, many years. And the Yellow Brick Road, that's why even with the highways, even with that major highway with Route 66, there's that connection with those like characters like, with Alice in Wonderland and other ones. Yellow bricks on the highways, on the roads. And I'm the only one that's ever discussed this or shared this or said this out loud. I don't know anyone else online that's ever said this or made this connection, but I've been saying this for years. And I thought that was very interesting. And that's also part of the, of what they would do with children, also say like, follow the Yellow Brick Road, disgusting stuff. And the people that built the roads are there videos I did. I don't know if it's the ones that were on my previous YouTube before I went on Rebel. I don't know if it's videos from there, but I was sharing, like, and you can look into this yourself, like look at who built that highway, those roads, and made that connection. And they were best friends with like the writers of like Alice in Wonderland and stuff like that. They were all part of the same group of people, right? The academics, the musicians, like at the higher levels, all part of the same club that all followed this like sun worship, that all, bastardized and perverted astrotheosophy and the representation of the luminary. And this is where we're at. This is where we are at.
Mexico City or Cancun or Montreal or Toronto in Canada have caught on to the fact that they're less likely to be caught along the northern U.S. border. Border Patrol also appeared stunned at what's happening up there at levels that they've never seen before. They're like, hey, we might have like one guy every 20 years. This is really bizarre for us. Now it's happening to the tune of thousands of illegal immigrants. Watch.
Tonight, America's newest border crisis, this one up north.
It's definitely a huge issue.
We're on an exclusive trip with local police patrolling near New York's border with Canada.
This is unheard of up here. I mean, I've never seen anything like this.
The Clinton County Sheriff's Office tells us they're encountering migrants, mainly Mexican, illegally crossing over the border from Canada at record levels.
And are they actually?
So one local city has been hunting
Mexicans,
these woods since
because there are people that they drop all their paperwork, so that you can't identify them, so they can say they're Mexican. But I was saying, and this is not to sound racist, but there are people that even claim that they're not Chinese in Canada. They're claiming that they're Vietnamese or from like other Asian countries, like Thailand or whatever. Because and I don't know why. It's obviously there are people that are very proud, like of the country they came from and stuff like that, and they don't care to say where they came from. But like some people are there for some reason, just because of like all the messaging with like with the freaking pandemic, like saying that like the lab leak came from Wuhan. But like there's a lot of racism directed towards people, like unjustifiably, because again, I have these like fucking idiots at the top that are writing the scripts and implementing them everywhere and using psyops and crisis actors and role players and government embeds and corporation heads that they're blackmailing and bribing in order to get this stuff fucking done for them. Well, they fucking do weird shit to fucking kids, possibly.
Childhood.
Gross,
And
man.
he said it's not uncommon for him to go.
You can't have these people fucking making decisions for people. And I said, even with the Vatican, it's considered a country, and a lot of the shit is like that. That's done. All right, it's fucking filtered or funneled. The legalities of it through Vatican, because with the absolute fucking monarch, whatever you want to call it, and people are not, and that's the way people are not being held accountable for their crimes because of it being not able to be enforced in in Vatican City, right? And anyway, it's like unfuck a lot of things.
Higher hunting season without seeing another human being. But now all of that's changed, he said, in the last
the UN Vatican connection, NATO Vatican connection.
What has happened in the last 3 years
not
in the
by
United
mistake.
States to change all of this? We go hunting and never see another human being. And now he literally is up in his deer blind, or he's up in a tree like 15 feet up or whatever, up in the air. And he's just like routinely seeing illegal immigrants like coming through.
This is especially dangerous. You know, what the mainstream media will report on at the southern border is these trucks. They don't call it human trafficking, but they have these trucks of migrants that are being illegally smuggled past border checks. And then these migrants are kept inside of these humongous trucks with no food, no water,
it's like getting treated like literal animals. And this is how horses are transported. This is how pigs are transported. Cows, and that's not okay either. Like, this is also fucking
isolation at all. So if this is happening from the north to the south, you can see how many of them would freeze to death in this kind of situation.
Right. I had thought about that. Yeah, I mean, they don't have the proper clothing. And as you can see here let's take a look at his trail cam videos here. I mean, this is during the summer, so they're coming in warm months in this video that he shared with the New York Post.
This was back in July. Okay. And there was there was 8 or 9 in this group that day.
8 or 9. And I'm saying that there's camps and stuff like that. I don't know if they're going to get into that in this video, but where they're around national parks, wildlife reserves and stuff like that, where people go to travel, where families go. Okay. And where women in first world countries, there's the naivety or that entitlement piece, or the fact that like people have been able to, for generations, more often than not, feel safe and be safe going to national parks, hiking alone, or maybe with like just a girlfriend and stuff like that. Do you think that's going to be safe this fucking spring and summer? This is why, like, I'm all hands on deck. Like, people need to fucking talk about this stuff, because within Canada and the US, you don't think that there's going to be a lot more rapes and murders and kidnappings? You know, like with murders, like, is it even going to be counted? Like, or even known, right? There could be like missing people forever that are not classified as murder or anything like that, and just like went missing. And there's ways to make bodies go missing. Like, these people fucking very creative ways, you know. And yeah, we're really not making this fucking place safe for women, children, or the more vulnerable. And so men don't care yet here. It's only when or if it impacts them. And these are the same people that are just swiping right on Tinder and or their own lives. I don't care about their communities. We need to care about our communities more.
And so, you know, this is his back trail cameras. Here they come just all day, just triggering the trail cam movements and coming right through. And then, of course, you know, as you look, all military age men, but this has been continuing right through the snow, right through the harsh winter. It doesn't matter. And, you know, the thing is, this is happening right under our noses, and the government is facilitating this to happen. So they're being totally quiet about it. And I want to know, like, where are the White House press reporters? Where are they in asking these questions of Karine Jean-Pierre or at, Department of Homeland Security? Where are the questions other than these congressional hearings where we have impeachment of Mayorkas? Why on a daily basis aren't we asking these questions about what's happening at the northern border, what's happening at the southern border, who's paying for these flights?
The UN, and unfortunately, it's governments through corporations that are funding it. Michelle Jean, whatever her friggin' name is, she's a diversity hire. She's like that's literally diversity hire, as in like she's like mentally not at the level she should be to be in the position she's in. And just because she's a friggin' like, and I'm just gonna say, just because of the color of her skin and her being a homosexual, that's the only reason why she's in that position. Because people have a fear of offending people, right? And like, there's just too much division or emotional responses elicited when someone that looks like me talks about that, someone of a different race or color or background or religion, right? It's not racism, it's not discriminating. She's a fucking idiot. She has no business being there. She's woefully, whatever you want to call it, underqualified, clearly. And that's from a Canadian perspective, right? So like, don't even like, who cares what I'm saying anyways? It's your fucking country that she's ruining and lying about. And she was also put there to as a what do I call it? The lame duck or the sacrificial lamb, whatever you want to call it, right? Like she's not running the fucking show. She is tweeting on behalf of the president though. So like that became very clear. I showed the evidence of that. And so like even Biden, like they don't have access to their social media. It's these puppets that do. And Kirby, this little fucking moron with like shoulder pads that are like friggin' huge, and he thinks that people like me like don't see that, like like his little arms going in this frail little fucking soy boy beta. And the reason why I'm saying that, because like he is a criminal and he's committed a lot of crimes against humanity. He's a propagandist. He's a lobbyist, and people like unfortunately being a lobbyist in the U.S. is not illegal. But there should be some I don't even know what you would call it, because it's fucking like I'm tired, but like there needs to be exceptions to that when there's crimes against humanity that are being committed, and money laundering and fraud, and like so like there's actual crimes being committed. So even though you're a lobbyist, you can't put that title on to negate your accountability piece, right? So like, oh, I'm a lobbyist, I'm allowed to have shares and stocks in these countries. Well, those shares and those stocks in those countries, in those companies, these are killing people and committing crimes against humanity. And so, and you're enforcing this, supporting this, and enabling this, and funding this, etc., with our money. So that's actually a crime, and so like that's why you're going to jail, right? So it's not because you're a lobbyist, right? Like if you were friggin' having shares and stocks and fucking apple cider vinegar, you know what I mean, and I wasn't fucking killing people, then good for you, right? Sure, there's a certain degree of corruption that should be expected within government, and I mean very minor, like not fucking crimes, but like let's say for example, you hire someone that's a family friend or someone that's been within your family for generations, like hiring them to have like a specific position within Canada. But however, if you know that person is an expert, and that person has like all of these friggin' accolades and stuff like that, and would be the best person for that job that you know of, and can like stand behind and back, like that, like you shouldn't take that position away from that person just because of that relationship. And there's a lot of people that would understand that. And or if people are with the government, if there's family or friends that are part of catering businesses as well, they often will use them as well. And people are like, oh my God, like that should be a conflict thing. Like, no, you know what it is? They actually get discounts, right? So like people that use friends and family for like catering services, everyone I friggin' know, they offer like 15-20% off discounts. Okay, so so people really need to understand how things are being spun in the media, because like when people say, oh, like that people like hired like a catering staff or delivery service, that was the whatever, the sister, yeah, but you also like saved hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars, and that's why. And anyway, like so minor things like that, sure, but like again, like when you're fucking killing people or supporting and enabling human and drug trafficking, no.
Start asking some incisive questions.
And so I'm just gonna get on to the some other videos that's going down. It's just so friggin' it's frustrating. Because I mentioned Carl Jung as well. Can't forget him. I'm watching this with you as well, but it's a reputable source. And so if there's anything that like I don't agree with, I'll just stop it and say. If it plays. It looks like it's loading. I'll just refresh. Try again. Still loading. My internet's been so bad. Okay, so let's see if I can reload and play this. Sorry. Okay, well, I'm going to try to figure that one out, but I'll put on the other video I wanted to share regarding Tucker. This is redacted again. I'm gonna redact it. Ben again, or whatever you want to call it, because like they do share a lot of good work.
We just got our clearest evidence yet that Americans are being censored and manipulated at the highest levels of government. One of the most disturbing and eye-opening interviews I've ever seen took place this weekend. I've had to watch it now 3 times, 4 if you count the amount of times that I've to clip sound bites for the show. Really, we're going to show you a bunch of key moments from this interview that Tucker Carlson conducted with a man by the name of Michael Benz. Now, Benz worked at the State Department in the cyber division, and he's been blowing the whistle exactly on how America has essentially become ruled by the Pentagon. I'm going to say that again. America is ruled by the Pentagon, the Defense Department. As we've been warning you here on this show, the military-industrial complex. I mean, Eisenhower warned about it in his going away address too.
So I was able to figure it out. You have to connect from different countries, different IP addresses sometimes, like refresh browsers or put them in like incognito. Like, this is what I mean. Like, I'm like, I'm not going to brag, but I am like the best security analyst in Canada. And I was working with the highest levels of government training people on hostile environment awareness training, standing rapid deployment team courses and stuff like that. But for the last few years since the pandemic, it's been like slow going. So I would also offer my experiences, my skill sets, my contracts to Americans. I've worked with a lot of Americans before as well, and I'm also willing to travel because this needs to be in person, because Canadian government, they've been fucking me off for now a few years. And I said that this year, if I don't get these contracts back and back in the work that I was doing to unfuck the mess that people I know personally have fucking committed, or people I know that work with these people that are just not looking at the data and information that I'm sharing, then I'm unfortunately going to leave Canada. I never fucking thought I was going to say that, right? But like, again, like I'm not beyond or above being corrected, even by myself. And because like quality of life and living conditions and cost of living, it's just they're intentionally doing this. People like at all levels. It's all areas, right? So it's not even cabinet alone on this. Unfortunately, now there are corporations and companies that are now exploiting us as well, because there's no penalties for it. There's no repercussions for it. There's zero accountability. So even people within the oil industry, they are stealing from us. Insurance companies, our banks are, with the mortgages and stuff like that. Like it's like the grocery stores, the gas stations, the education systems with ridiculous fucking degrees that with like fun times. And so it's not the country that I once loved. I still love it, but it's not the country that I used to be in. It's collapsing. And I've tried for years to prevent this. At great sacrifice to myself, like sacrifice of my life, sacrifice having a family and kids and all that fucking stuff. And we still have the biggest pieces of fucking shit morons in cabinet, like Melanie Joly and Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau and all these people, and the people that resigned in the last couple of years as well, not in disgrace and zero accountability either. And so this is Canada. And even with Bill Blair, like in 2010, we didn't learn this guy was a fucking psychopath then, when he committed crimes against humanity in Toronto. And I've shared this and countless others shared this at the G20 summit for no fucking reason against innocent civilians within his own community. And then he gets hired in Ottawa to be the Minister of National Defense and is hugely impactful in committing crimes against humanity here. No, my screen is frozen. Oh, well.
Too bad it was already too late when he said that at that time. But what they're doing is silencing, censoring Americans who they deem to be a threat of their plans for endless wars and the massive expansion of the military-industrial complex. They don't want you talking badly about their wars, turns out. And they want puppets in government like Joe Biden who will do their bidding, who will perpetuate these wars. That's how the machine continues to operate. What we learned in this interview is deeply disturbing, and it aligns with many of the stories of censorship that we've revealed here on this show. As Natalie just said a moment ago, we've talked about a lot of these things, certainly in the Twitter files and other pieces of censorship content that we've covered here on the show. It all aligns with that. But I think this is the biggest, most comprehensive education about all of this that we've heard. Ben's sort of sets the stage by explaining how basically the United States government was blindsided by the power of social media, and how at first it was seen as a good thing, a way to prop up democracy, free speech. So they really championed social media. Watch.
In 2011, 2012, when you had this one by one, all of the adversary governments of the Obama administration, Egypt, Tunisia, all began to be toppled in Facebook revolutions and Twitter revolutions. And you had the State Department working very closely with the social media companies to be able to keep social media online during those periods. There's a famous phone call from Google's Jared Cohen to Twitter to not do their scheduled maintenance so that the preferred opposition group in Iran would be able to use Twitter to win that election. So it was free speech was an instrument of statecraft from the national security state to begin with. All of that architecture, all of the NGOs, the relationships between the tech companies and the national security state had been long established for freedom.
So just think about that for a moment. The United States was going out of its way to make sure that these people had unfettered access to social media, to make sure that they were free from censorship.
Of course.
That they could tell the truth, what was happening in their own country. I remember this explicitly. I was on the air at Fox and Friends on Fox News Channel during the Arab Spring, watching those amazing protests unfold. And one way we were able to get accurate information was from citizen journalists who were there on the ground as those governments were being toppled. So we were getting real-time information where newsrooms, like these legacy media, really couldn't get any information. So it enabled them in many ways to topple governments, to get their voices out, power to the people, essentially. But then Benz explains how the United States-backed coup in Ukraine changed everything. And so just some context here, of course, the United States, Viktor Yanukovych, of course, was elected democratically. And then the United States, of course, comes in and foments a coup in Ukraine in 2014, right? And installs our own Western puppet government into Ukraine. Well, just so you understand what happened in Crimea at the time, well, then the ethnic Russians and the heavily ethnic Russian population in Crimea, we do not want this Western government representing us, this NATO-backed U.S. Western government that's anti-Russian and is pro-NATO, pro-U.S. They don't represent us. So we're going to join Russia. We're going to join the Russian Federation after the vote was held. And they voted overwhelmingly to become part of Russia. So the West doesn't want you to know that part of the story. That's where Michael says everything went wrong for this plan. Now the social media, the power of social media actually led them to joining Russia. We can't have that happening on our watch.
Imagine what a big baby feels like when you can't control other people's countries and outcomes.
You're seeing it here in Crimea.
That's exactly how Obama acted. Like, wait a minute. They chose for themselves. Can't have this.
They chose to join Russia, not the puppet government that we just installed through our CIA.
That
CIA
really
coup.
backfired. Cannot have it.
So here's what Michael Benz says about that.
In 2014, after the coup in Ukraine, there was an unexpected counter coup where Crimea and the Donbass broke away. And they broke away with essentially a military backstop that NATO was highly unprepared for at the time. They had one last Hail Mary chance, which was the Crimea annexation vote in 2014. And when the hearts and minds of the people of Crimea voted to join the Russian Federation, that was the last straw for the concept of free speech on the internet in the eyes of NATO.
That was it, right? And this is where stuff gets really crazy. Then comes Russiagate and the fake idea that Russia hacked our election and gave power to Trump. They built these lying tools, these censorship tactics to use against these foreign players. But after Russiagate collapsed and Trump fired all of these guys, they got together and essentially turned those tools away from the Russiagate story and from foreign adversaries towards the American people. Listen.
It was only after Russiagate died in July 2019 when Robert Mueller basically choked on the stand for 3 hours and revealed he had absolutely nothing after 2.5 years of investigation, that the foreign to domestic switcheroo took place, where they took all of this censorship architecture spanning DHS, the FBI, the CIA, the DOD, the DOJ, and then the thousands of government-funded NGO and private sector mercenary firms were all basically transited from a foreign predicate, a Russian disinformation predicate, to a democracy predicate by saying that disinformation is not just a threat when it comes from the Russians, it's actually an intrinsic threat to democracy itself.
Okay.
I mean, it's unbelievable. So now we're going to turn it we're going to turn it on the American people, because they didn't see the size of the internet coming. They didn't see the power of the internet coming. They didn't see the power of social media coming. It's amazing to me. And I mean, I guess Bill Gates didn't see the internet either. Right?
Well,
Microsoft
it's not
famously
so
didn't.
much that, it's that they didn't see the fact that they couldn't control it. They arrogantly thought that they could continue to control the narrative in the same way that they control the mainstream media. He talks about, do you have this in your clips, about CBS and the New York Times?
Oh, yeah.
And so the problem is not that people are speaking for themselves, because speaking out loud in a room is fine. But they'd been so conditioned to controlling the spin on all stories that they wanted through the mainstream media.
Well, and it's the power of, the legacy media. It's the New York Times. It's the Washington Post. It's these newsrooms that they've infiltrated for years. Operation Mockingbird, the CIA control of these legacy media. And he explains how they've been they're mouthpieces of the government. They have been. I mean, the history of the New York Times with the CIA is long and deep. So is CBS News, right? We know that. So when they're like, we're the most trusted name in news. No, you're not. You're mouthpieces of the intelligence state. You're mouthpieces of the government. So they didn't see the size of the internet coming, the scope of what social media would become. I guess at the time, things like MySpace weren't even around. These little like piddly social media pages. Oh, someone has 20 followers. Big deal. Who cares about your little Facebook page and what you're doing on your father's birthday party or whatever? Who cares, right? They didn't foresee the size that some of these things could take on. Like, I mean, just look at the size of like Tucker's audience, right? Tens of millions of people. That's a powerful, powerful block. And you had this moment where the elites were worried. They say, hey, what if the New York Times, which tells us all what to think, suddenly declines? This, for me, was one of the most eye-opening pieces of this entire interview. Watch this idea of this tabletop exercise. Like, what about the New York Times, which we control? What if suddenly no one's reading the New York Times anymore, and it's about the size of a small Facebook page? Watch.
The German Marshall Fund held a meeting in 2019. They held 1 million of these, frankly, but where a 4-star general got up on the panel and said that what happens. He posed the question: what happens to the U.S. military? What happens to the national security state when the New York Times is reduced to a medium-sized Facebook page? And he posed this thought experiment as an example of we've had these gatekeepers, we've had these bumper cars on democracy in the form of a century-old relationship with legacy media.
I'm going on all these tangents, but Chris Sky, who he shares great work as well. I'm not in agreement with everything he does and says. Again, I'll reiterate, but that's like me for everyone, and it's the same thing for him with me. Would apply. But one of his posts, like in the last couple of days, it was just regarding him slamming the fact that Northern Ontario, the LCBOs, which is our liquor stores, is going to have like digital like scanning IDs, or you're going to require like a scanned license, driver's license, whatever you want to call it, at the door. I was a use of force instructor, fun fact, and someone that trained all the security guards for the LCBOs provincially across the entire province. Okay, the stats and stuff like that, the investigative reports, the use of force reports, all of that stuff, and stuff that I tracked and monitored, obviously for trends, and so that you assess the weekly trends, the hourly trends, like when there's more upticks of incidents or less upticks, anyways, and you're looking at trends, and I won't get too much into that stuff. And I was teaching use of force, like the report, like note taking, how to, and all of that stuff, how to do an incident report, how to do the anyway. I taught all of that fucking stuff, and because of what I shared, not able to anymore. The most incidents and the most violent incidents, of certain stores where there's repeat offenders or whatever, and violent friggin' theft, where people have no interest at all. They didn't even have money on them. Like some people are unfortunately homeless and or desperate and or addicted, people that have heavy addictions. And in that area that he's talking about as well, there's safe supply areas that are by these LCBOs that he's talking about. I know exactly which ones he's talking about, because that is the area where we have like guards don't want to work these areas because they're fucking dangerous, right? And then there's and then just the protocols that certain security policies or policy implementers want to put out is under a certain degree of theft. You just let them go, and over a certain amount, you're supposed to attempt to arrest or detain, whatever you want to call it, and wait for cops to come, and that takes hours, all this shit. People don't understand how in some places with just the uptick and the increase in crime and theft, and it's dangerous, where even security guards, someone that was underage, that was extremely high. It must have been on some kind of like methamphetamine or anyway, some kind of like a needle drug, but like ridiculous strength, where it took multiple people to restrain this person and make this person not a danger to everyone else in the friggin' area, because it was just and so it's dangerous. And I'll just leave it at that. And so you have to kind of manage and taper expectations and look at risk management, and don't look at everything as just like a complete a lack of freedom or like a push for control. Sometimes it's legitimately just because it's not safe for other people to go. So these LCBOs that are losing a lot of money, okay, and there's people that are really good at it, and then people don't feel safe going into these LCBOs because it's known, right? Especially being by the safe supply, like drug places and stuff like that are literally in the same freaking area. So families don't want to go there. People that are not addicts, but just want to go, for I don't know, a bottle of friggin' wine because they had a rough week or whatever. And the threat of violence is real. And or even theft, getting on your way in or out, because these places are not properly monitored and secured. And the security guards also outside of the building, the facility, they don't have any right to go beyond that, because they don't have any jurisdiction on public grounds, et cetera, et cetera. But anyways.
So I'm blown away by that.
Is it bad that I got a little excited about the idea of
Did you see Tucker's face too? Because he's like, what is it? Because you have to think about the New York Times, the Washington Post, these publications. I mean, the LA Times is laying off hundreds of people, right? Because no one's reading them in the way that they were before. And you have to think that many of them were probably artificially propped up.
Yes.
Right? That I would love to know the full circulation numbers of the New York Times, right?
It's got to be scary for them for, shows like this, where we don't have, hey, we're bringing in, a former Raytheon executive to talk about war in Ukraine. It's because we're not doing that, it's they can't control it. They can't control the narrative and even make it look like they're not controlling the narrative,
Right.
So it's got to be frightening for that complex. But so, yeah.
Yeah, we won't do that. I don't want to name names, but there are certain legacy media that have offered us money and sponsorship, and we won't do it because we can't in good conscience promote something that we know tells lies. So,
we've had two, I won't say the names, but we've had two legacy media companies reach out to us to sponsor our show. And I laughed out loud.
Sure.
I'm like, do you know who we are? I would never, ever
And
allow
CNN.
you to be a sponsor on our show. Like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Two totally separate companies wanted to sponsor our show here at Redacted. Like, no way.
Companies that we have pointed out their lies before. So it would be disingenuous of us to take their money.
I don't know about that. What if people want to
you know,
learn?
I mean,
Anyway,
yeah.
we won't name names. But anyway, so then Trump wins the election, and then this happens.
When Trump won the election in 2016, everyone who worked at the State Department was expecting these promotions then to the White House National Security Council under Hillary Clinton, who I should remind viewers, was also Secretary of State under Obama, actually ran the State Department. But these folks were all expecting promotions on November 8th, 2016, and were unceremoniously put out of jobs by a guy who was a 20-to-1 underdog, according to the New York Times, the day of the election.
So then Trump wins, and when Trump won, all of these guys who worked for the Obama administration in the sanctions department, that's basically what they did, operated like sanctions within the State Department, took their skills then to Europe and really got the European Union, pressured them into a series of censorship tools where social media companies under the EU law would then be fined tens of millions of dollars if, say, someone posted something quote unquote hateful on their platform. They then could be fined 10, 50, 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollars per post because of the hate post that somebody on their platform made. So now these social media companies, through these European laws, were forced to change, and they could mass censor all of these posts in Europe. And that's what this group of Obama, people did. And now then, once that happened, they were able to take, shadow ban accounts, block tens of thousands of accounts, and then bring those things back to the United States. If they don't want unfavorable topics being out there, 2020 election, masks, mandates, COVID, Dr. Fauci, posts about any of that, banned, blocked, hidden, suppressed, and censored. Listen.
And this gave, I call these weapons of mass deletion. These are essentially the ability to censor tens of millions of posts. With just a few lines of code, they created these COVID lexicons of what dissident groups were saying about mandates, about masks, about vaccines, about high-profile individuals like Tony Fauci. And then they plugged these into these essentially machine learning models to be able to have a constant world heat map of what everybody was saying about COVID. And whenever something started to trend that was bad for what the Pentagon wanted or was bad for what Tony Fauci wanted, they were able to take down tens of millions of posts. They did this in the 2020 election with mail-in ballots. It was the same.
Wait. May I ask you? I'm sorry. I just gotta have. There's so much here, and it's so shocking. So you're saying the Pentagon, our Pentagon, the U.S. Department of Defense, censored Americans during the 2020 election cycle?
Yes, they did this. They did this through the. So there's the two most censored events in human history, I would argue, to date, are the 2020 election and the COVID-19 pandemic.
I mean,
two things you can still not freely talk about on YouTube.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we're on Rumble. We're streaming live on Rumble. We can talk there about it. But literally in the terms of service to this day, you still can't talk about that on their platform. Isn't that amazing? Like, it's still there for anyone to go and read right now. You can read it if you want. Go read their community guidelines. See it for yourself. It's right there. So now they've used social media to comment about the election. If you use this,
and actually, like, and I also want to say, like, just to be the devil's advocate with Redacted, this team with Clinton and his wife, with the mainstream media outlets, like, they should be more. I mean, it's not like my place to say, but like, I would be more open and willing to work with like the mainstream media outlets in Canada as well. Like, I have emailed them repeatedly and contacted them, their tip line as well, and stuff like that. And I was fucking hung up on or laughed at, even though I was not being rude. It's just that no matter how you come across, like, you could be this is what I mean. You could be as calm as possible talking to some people when you give them information that makes them that puts them in survival mode. Okay, because they're the foundations, their belief systems like are collapsing. Like it's all that's what's putting them in fight or flight, right? So like they need to have like a safe space or a safe environment, in order to like friggin' have that overwhelming, like foundational fucking awakening. I don't even know what you would call it. Like, and so if CTV or Global News would reach back out, and know that I'm never going to sell out Canada or Canadians, like in order to get like money or fame or prestige or anything like that, and people know this from Discovery Channel as well. Like, I'm not going to sell out or be or lie or deceive in any way in order to make myself look way better than what than the reality of what's going on, right? Like, I'm not into that stuff. And maybe it's because I'm Canadian. I don't know. Like, maybe I should be I don't know. I don't even know where it's going with this again. This is why, like, I need to have a dialogue with people.
Social media to comment about the election.
Get me back on track.
It could now be considered a cyber attack on America. That's literally what they're saying here. Listen.
They said dis, and malinformation.
Oh yeah.
Online are a.
Yeah, I would totally work with these companies, but like, they didn't reach back out to me. I used to be a military advisor, like a veteran military advisor, obviously, and as soon as they tried to push like the white supremacist narrative, they had me and someone that I was a good friend with for many years, a fucking lawyer that actually who assisted with enabling the Emergency Act as well, and was pushing for like the woke agenda, even though I was asking her for fucking help, like all of this stuff, to be like a lawyer and represent me and stuff like that. Nope. But we were talking, and she was pushing the narrative they wanted to push. So she's been on the news repeatedly, and she's a very smart person. But again, like, she's just not fully awake. Like, she's not awake. Like, she's in a fucking fog of like illusion, and it's unfortunate, because if she would actually sit down and talk with me about this stuff, she would fucking be such a good person to have on our fucking side. Oh my god! And that's the thing that like breaks my heart the most, because anyway, waste talent. And but they haven't called me back because I wasn't going to push that like a lying agenda, because I wasn't woke. I get I like for years now, I have been a critical thinker. I've been paying attention to the fucking stuff and calling things out. And I would and so if they would give me the opportunity and not do a fucking hit piece like they did with Jeremy McKenzie and others, then I would be open and willing to working with them. But they have people like Justin Ling, who again, like he has zero business or experience as a journalist, and people like that need these courses that I teach or that I've taught to government journalists, especially ones that travel or that talk about news. Okay, they need to take these courses, because like they look so fucking stupid to people like me. Honestly, like when they're saying like all like the same fucking psyops propaganda stuff that Bell TV's pushing on them. From like scripted media from like fucking like billionaires that are fucking possibly pedivores, not good people.
Form of cybersecurity attack.
They need people like us, because like they're also like they're getting defunded. It's getting pushed. Like they're an embarrassment. They have been wrong with literally everything. And there's people like me and other people that have finally like got frustrated enough to actually like do these videos and get this information out there, like Jeremy McKenzie and Chris Sky. I'm including them in this as well, and countless others, Viva Frey, and because mainstream media has continued to lie, like Rachel Maddow and all these fucking idiots, right? Like these people, like they cannot think for themselves, and that's dangerous, okay, for people that are seen as news. When government officials that are going to war and stuff like that are seeing these people as news outlets, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. And I would work for them if they were going to actually report the news and or the data, the evidence that people like me give them, if they were actually willing to like look at that, because like then they would deserve the money that they get. Right now they don't deserve it. Now they deserve jail is what they deserve, and they deserve to have their companies defunded and deplatformed, and they deserve to have their journalists fired at a minimum and never work again as journalists. When you're shitty at your job, like you're supposed to get fired. There's supposed to be certifications and qualifications that are met, right? So if you're a journalist and you get things wrong 100% of the time, fire that fucking idiot, right? Like if you get things wrong, even I would argue 70% of the time you should be fired, right? So like there should be more onus on companies that are getting subsidized by government and are heavily funded by government, that they need to have certain requirements, and cabinet as well, right? It's a fucking mess.
cyber attack because they are
We- oh,
happening
we've got-
online.
Can
they
you
said-
imagine someone from The View, like Joy Behar or Whoopi Goldberg, being in Senate? Like, how upset would people in the US be? Like, that's a fucking joke. We have someone from The Social, which is Canada equivalent to The View. It's just mind-numbing, ridiculous psyops propaganda, fucking wokeism that's being pushed. That's also collapsing our society from the inside. Parasitic information being fucking thrown out of these fucking women's mouths, right? And they're seen as like liberal, woke, smart, modern women. Oh my god! And how, what are her followers like from The Social? This fucking cast member from The Social in cabinet. It's fucking infuriating when I have been emailing all levels of cabinet, putting my fucking resume out there, reaching out all of this stuff for fucking years, and they're not even responding back. But this fucking dummy is I'm just getting mad again. I'm making myself mad.
Well, actually, Russian disinformation is we're actually protecting democracy and elections. We don't need a Russian predicate after Russiagate died. So just like that, you had this cybersecurity agency be able to legally make the argument that your tweets about mail-in ballots, if you undermine public faith and confidence in them as a legitimate form of voting, you are now conducting a cyber attack on U.S. critical infrastructure by articulating misinformation on Twitter. And just like that, now what they did then is they
so in other words,
a bunch of
complaining about election fraud is the same as taking down our power grid.
Yes, you could literally be on your toilet seat at 9:30 on a Thursday night and tweet, "I think that mail-in ballots are illegitimate." And you were essentially then caught up in the crosshairs of the Department of Homeland Security classifying you as conducting a cyber attack on U.S. critical infrastructure because you were doing misinformation online in the cyber realm. And misinformation is a cyber attack on democracy when it undermines public faith and confidence in our democratic elections and our democratic institutions.
Unbelievable. Got two more to show you here. Just two more. Someone in our chat, Phil DeGora, says, "I'm a former U.S. Marine. This is not what I fought for or signed up for." Yeah. I think a lot of people are having this thought right now about what does it mean?
A Marine
what is the
saying
United
that.
States anymore?
The fucking creme de la creme, like American fucking soldiers. Like I've worked with them. I did an exchange at West Point Military Academy when I was at RMC. I've deployed, like I was working in and around like Americans as well. And even when I was in the special forces, obviously, like we do training and like within the Five Eyes community. So like I've done a lot of training operations and other like travel with within the US and with Americans. Great fucking people. And these people are so disheartened, people that I know, even within Canada, like the best of the best. And they are so fucking infuriated and disgusted and appalled and upset at our leadership and what's being propped up as fucking disgusting leadership and the false flags and all that other stuff. Like these are heroes, people that could be used and employed in the way that they're supposed to be, because throughout history there's been warriors that are needed to serve and protect. And there's people communities that are needed, right? There's sacrifice needed, women for the majority to give children to create, to procreate, and often like the healers, the teachers, and the men being the hunters, women the gatherers. We all have like certain roles assigned, like for the majority, and every species in the world has that, right? Like where there's those within that protect, right? Like even within like the lion pride and other species, there are members of the pack even that sacrifice for the collective, right? Like just for the to advance the that race or that species. And but when you fucking lie to them, these fucking little Kirby's that need fucking shoulder pads because he's a fucking little troll gnome, a fucking loser that's a psychopath that is lying to people like that and duping them into going to these fucking proxy wars and or inoculating themselves with pharmaceuticals that they should not be fucking inoculating them with, and it's for money, and it's because they have the money too, and they have the platform, and the platforms that they are using, we need to ignore them, okay? Because even right now, if people didn't pay attention to cabinet, life would still fucking go on. Like, I mean, if we didn't have it right now, if we didn't have anyone in cabinet right now, actually life would be better off in Canada right now. And that is terrifying to me, because within first world countries, you need and you benefit as a collective from having a system and governance in place, because every fucking country should, and every species has like a system of governance or rulership or whatever you want to call it, and hierarchies and stuff like that within, right? It's not pure anarchy and it's not pure authoritarianism, not at all. And because these there's people within that are preying on us, and predatorial and sociopaths and psychopaths and fucking pushing a woke agenda and all this stuff, and very unhealthy in their own lives, and on way too many medications to even fucking understand that they're on planet Earth. You know, they're actually causing harm, right? So like it's better to like not be punched in the face than be punched in the face. Like this is where we're at with the people that are fucking currently serving us, including heads of RCMP, heads of police districts, people from within, like also trying to rise up against in a peaceful way and speak out against what they're pushing. And this has been years of this, and I'm going on all these fucking tangents, but we've got sick people that are fucking hurting us right now, and there's no one within the law enforcement or judicial system that's actually helping us anymore, and it's sad.
Pain.
And I know, and I can name why.
Pain for them
like
to
Bill
torture.
Blair needs to be fucking fired and arrested. Like that's number one. That's fucking number one. Justin Trudeau as well, Chrystia Freeland as well, but like not even them as much as the people like Bill Blair that are supposed to be seen as the experts. Wayne Eyre, he is more accountable for the fucking crimes within Canada than Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland. And I know people don't want to fucking hear that, but he is the expert advisor. He's the chief of defense staff, right? As a prime minister, I should be looking at my experts for advice and stuff like that. And when these fucking idiots are part of the woke campaign and not qualified to be in the positions they're in, right? Like that's not good for us. Brenda Lucky as well. She was the head of the RCMP. And not good things people were saying from within as well. So this is why I'm saying I can't even believe people get the positions they get, because I was even doing training for emergency response teams, right? Even when I was in special forces, like planning conferences and coordination and stuff like that for like the higher levels of government. And so these people, there's a huge dislike for these people I'm naming. This fucking red flags all over the place, ladies and gentlemen. So like if people wanted to actually arrest these people and hold them accountable, I'm letting you know that you would be so fucking supported from people within, because they're waiting for you to do that. People that I know from the special forces are telling me all the time, like, I can't believe our fucking law enforcement has not fucking jailed Justin Trudeau yet. I get this on a regular basis. Firefighters are telling me this. Paramedics are fucking telling me. The advanced care paramedics are telling me this. Nurses are telling me this. People are saying, doctors are telling me this. They're saying, I can't believe these people have not been fucking fired yet. I can't believe these people have not been jailed yet. You don't think that everyone would fucking celebrate seeing Justin Trudeau out in fucking handcuffs or Chrystia Freeland? And rightfully so, because they are fucking criminals, and people that know this are fucking waiting for you to do your fucking jobs, right? People think that like that the mainstream media is propping up the majority or talking about what the majority thinks, and it's not true at all. It's not true at all. It's so not true. Like literally no one respects mainstream media anymore, or the journalist like news feeds anymore. It's been a couple of years now, and you're seeing it. You're seeing it. So if you fucking think that people, again, like law enforcement, Helen Bruce, my friend Helen, over 20 years service, she would probably cry and thank God, you know what I mean, if these people finally got fucking fired or held accountable. Peter Slowly included. He was the chief of police, and he was fully on board with fucking committing crimes against humanity, against his own fucking citizens. And these are the people that are supposed to be awake, right? The critical thinkers within the society, in order to like see beyond the fog of war or the PSYOPs campaigns and make the right decisions when it matters. That's not what the political leaders are supposed to be doing, right? Like they're supposed to be, supporting like the platform and the governance piece, the administration piece, right? And now we're relying on them to also like be responsible for the security and the defense of our fucking nation. Because who the fuck else? We're desperate.
For us, because this is a nightmare. Watching this is
MSM is a fucking joke.
The fact that they classified the media as a tenet of the state. So if you are questioning the media, not only mail-in ballots, but if you're questioning the media, you could also be accused of being disruptive of government services. So they're basically
I'm the media.
Admitting that the media is an arm of the government.
Right.
Yeah, it's a dystopian nightmare. Absolutely a dystopian nightmare. But I mean, you know, someone just in our chat pointed out that the Tucker Carlson interview with Vladimir Putin has how many billions of views now? That for them is a nightmare that they can't control, right? So
yeah, I mean, yeah, but now this is where we come back to desperate people do desperate things, right? Because now they're having, I mean, they tried to go after Tucker Carlson before his interview with Vladimir Putin. The NSA was spying on him, broke into his phone before. I mean,
his emails.
What? He's a journalist, and
Tucker Carlson is a journalist. This is also an important point. I've been saying this, others have been saying this now also, and people need to take heed to this and understand this. Like when you have people have been clearly showing they're corrupted for years, whether they know it or not, but clearly fucking puppets that are clearly collapsing our society. You don't need more proof than what you fucking see, like literally everywhere. Like we're all being impacted by this. Like I have to choose between eating and heating my house, you know, from day to day. You know what I mean? It's fucking infuriating. But these people are desperate, and they know that when the elections that are coming this year or next year, depending on where you are, they know that they're not going to win. They know that. No matter how much they pay off their mainstream media, especially now that they're getting very heavily deplatformed and defunded and not taken seriously at all. And it's very clear that Tucker Carlson, with billions of views on a video that's like only a couple of weeks old, if that, like he gets more views than mainstream media. So like they should be called legacy media. And even I get a lot more views, believe it or not, than a lot of journalists within Canada that are funded by government and stuff like that. So like even I would consider myself to be like anyway, so what people that are desperate do is they create false flag events and they create chaos, right? So that there could be like emergency acts declared again, and or lockdowns, and or things that are that happen within the society that we have to respond to, like some kind of like a civil war event or a natural and or man-made disaster that happens, like a EMPs or like again these lockdown things. It could be climate related, or it could be fucking like a civil war type thing, or attack on a monument, you know, or a significant symbol within Canada, to like fucking dupe us into to further restrictions and societal collapse and ruin and overthrow and take over, so that there won't be elections, is what I'm saying. So like this year or next year, like for the U.S., I don't think that if these people are not held accountable and jailed and or like fired, arrest, all that stuff, and actual suitable candidates being put in, like there's not going to be elections anywhere. I'm saying anywhere. And it's because you have leftists that are communist socialists that are not liberal, they're not democratic. Okay, they're just like taking over that fucking party, and they're just not going to allow this, like their power to just be taken from them, especially in such a humiliating way with their egos and stuff like that as well. Because as soon as people, you know, transfer the power, they're going to be looking at the emails, they're going to be looking at the call logs, they're going to be looking at the fucking finances and the money, and they're going to have to like figure out where the fuck it all went and why. And then they're going to be looking at the false flag events and the intel reports and all that stuff, and where they were getting their information from and their data, in order to like enforce and impose all these measures and mandates that they've been implemented on us for the last 4 years. And they're going to be like, holy fuck, we need to investigate these people and jail them. Do you fucking think they're going to fucking just be like, yep, election time, let's just let this fucking roll out? No, motherfucking no. And if you think that, if you think there's going to be elections with these people as the fucking candidates, I'm fucking telling you now. And within cabinet, I'm saying with everyone within cabinet, because left and right, same fucking bird.
You know, the government is breaking into his phone before he goes to Moscow to interview President of Russia. Really? It's unbelievable to me. But this is, now they're scared. So desperate people do desperate things. What are they going to do? That's what's really scary, because now people have, you know, and we have a platform like X for all of its imperfections. And I don't know all of its imperfections. We're able to actually play this interview and talk about it because it was published on X. So anyway, they censored hundreds of millions of posts, and they did it 7 months before the election. they knew exactly that Biden was going to win the election. This is the most important part, I think, that maybe of this entire interview, is that they, using mail-in ballots, they were trying to prevent people from talking about it. And they knew it 7 months ahead of time. Listen.
And mind you, they did this on 15 platforms. This is hundreds of millions of posts, which were all scanned and banned or throttled so that they could not be amplified, or they exist in a sort of limited state purgatory, or had these frictions affixed to them in the form of fact-checking labels where you couldn't actually click through the thing, or you had to, it was an inconvenience to be able to share it. Now, they did this 7 months before the election, because at the time they were worried about the perceived legitimacy of a Biden victory in the case of a so-called red mirage blue shift event. They knew the only way that Biden would be able to would win mathematically was through the disproportionate Democrat use of mail-in ballots. They knew there would be a crisis because it was going to look extremely weird if Trump looked like he won by 7 states.
Even World War I, World War II, when with unpopular presidents, the reason why, like even within the U.S., like the reason why, like you guys kept on in the fucking world wars is because, people were very disliked, and just because of like crimes against humanity that were being committed, and it was being spoken about freely. And then coming up with like big fucking events, like, oh, like we can't, like, I can't just step down. I can't just like have an election. Like I can't go out like this. And then, so like, we need to try to come up with agreements, like continue into war. Like, and even talking about like biochemical warfare, like, even at that time, it being illegal, and alcoholics like running the show, and interesting times. That's what I wanted to say. And so, like, anyone that thinks the solution is like is a violent is should be violent is so fucking, like, no offense, ignorant, in my humble opinion. And this is another thing that has been tried throughout fucking history by people that are overly aggressive, or like not really seeing the bigger fucking picture, and they're just responding in with the lower level emotions and the lower level levels of consciousness, I would guess, right? Like, and so hurt people, right? That's not the answer. And so even with Justin Trudeau, right? Like what would be very healing for Canadians, and for all Canadians and internationally, what would be very healing and would hold him absolutely accountable, where everyone would be able to watch, including children, okay, and people that wouldn't be like disgusted by like violence, would be if he was peacefully and very gently, even if it's like fucking like pink handcuffs with like fuzzy handcuffs, you know what I mean? Just make sure like his wrists, like, you don't, put the handcuffs too tight, because he's been entitled and fucking privileged his whole life, and have him arrested and have him from Parliament walk out of Parliament, right? And so that literally everyone would be able to see it, right? Because all this violence that happens with leaders and stuff like that from other places, no one wants to see that or watch that. They're just like, it's horrific. And no one understands why and stuff like that. It's horrific to hear, like, even if you're not from that fucking country. And so like that, like that's not what people see as justice or accountability. Like that's crime, and it's unfortunate. And so, but arresting people that are actual criminals, like that's something that people would like. My mother would fucking love to watch that, right? Like him getting taken on. Chrystia Freeland in handcuffs. Oh my God, she would love that even more, I think, because she really dislikes Chrystia Freeland. Every time I say her name, she's like, puh, puh. Don't say that name in this house.
And then 3 days later, it comes out actually the election switched. I mean, that would put the election crisis of the Bush-Gore election on a level of steroids that the national security state said, well, the public will not be prepared for. So what we need to do is we need to, in advance, we need to pre-censor the ability to even question the legitimacy. This took out.
Wait. May I ask you to pause right there?
Key influences.
So what you're saying is, what you're suggesting is, they knew the outcome of the election 7 months before it was held.
It looks very bad. Certainly what they did
That's it. Yes, Mike, it does look very bad.
It looks very bad. Yes, indeed. So they knew ahead of time what was going to happen, and they were then making sure to suppress any consternation about it online anywhere. They knew how this was going to unfold 7 months ahead of time. They knew exactly how the election would play out.
Yes, that's very surprising.
I mean, what do we call this? This is
illegal.
Yeah, and he points out it's the perfect crime, really, because the very people responsible for impeachment in the Russia hoax were behind this new form of censorship. I mean, it's unbelievable. The military industrial complex, the censorship industrial complex, one and the same. And, you know, he sort of levels it off at the end here to say that this is not a democracy. I mean, the U.S. is basically ruled by the military industrial complex.
You're not describing democracy. I mean, you're describing a country in which democracy is impossible.
What I'm essentially describing is military rule.
Yeah, military rule. Let us know what you think about this in the comments below. I think it's one of the most disturbing interviews. We'll link it up in the description. I will encourage all of you to go watch it while it's available on YouTube. I can't believe that it's still available on YouTube, that interview. I think it just would be.
Well, I mean, it's because YouTube's getting money off of it, right? So so even though it's pushing down their corrupted fucking like outlets that are using their platform, like unfortunately YouTube is gonna have to fucking break a little bit. Like unfortunately, boohoo, you're gonna have to like allow my content out more, and like content like mine and Tucker Carlson and Redacted and stuff like that, and Dr. John Campbell and countless others. Anomaly, you're gonna have to start putting us back in the algorithms or whatever you want to call it. Stop shadow banning. Stop putting our fucking content down, and those like whatever you want to call it. Those like tagging our friggin' posts and like correcting with a Wikipedia fucking reference. Like that's something. So back to Carl Jung, because like again, like this video is 10 hours long again, and I still haven't got to him yet. It's title of my video. Carl Jung, his secret Masonic lineage and alchemical studies. Agrippa's diary.
Mysteriously or secretively. It speaks a secret language. It adumbrates itself by a variety of images which all indicate its true nature. I'm not speaking of a secret personally guarded by someone with a content known to its possessor, but of a mystery, a matter or circumstance which is secret. Carl Gustav Jung, the father of analytical psychology, was one of the most influential psychologists of all time. Throughout his life, Jung formulated numerous groundbreaking psychological concepts that have left an indelible mark on the field. Among these are synchronicity, archetypal phenomena, the collective unconscious, psychological complexes, the personality traits of extroversion and introversion, and the process of individuation. The son of a Protestant.
So I'm not really entirely familiar with Carl Jung's work. I'm not going to lie, even though I have like a minor in psychology, I have advanced psychology courses because of the cognitive science degree I was getting. And I've looked at countless psychologists and stuff like that. And Carl Jung, he just never really interested me. It's all that symbology that he discusses that I'm looking at right now. I didn't even know that he discussed tarot or any of that other stuff with the symbology. And so like he's getting it from the same sources likely that I've got it from. And so it's interesting to see how he interprets it.
Who refused to adhere completely to any religious doctrine, Jung studied throughout his life various religious traditions, including Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Gnosticism, as well as esoteric traditions like alchemy and astrology. But what inspired Jung to dedicate his entire life to this field, and most importantly, what gave birth to his profound fascination with alchemy and the esoteric arts? The answer is complex, but there is one important but overlooked hint that could solve this riddle. And this hint lies dormant in the mysterious history of Grand Lodge Alpina of Switzerland, whose second Grand Master was Carl Gustav Jung, his grandfather. Welcome to Agrippa's diary, the gathering place for modern mystics. Carl Gustav Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, and founder of analytical psychology, a school of psychology.
And like the Swiss army or they're the one that protect the Pope and the Vatican.
That focuses on the importance of the individual psyche and the quest for wholeness. Born on July 26, 1875 in Kessville, Switzerland, Jung was a pivotal figure in the evolution of psychology and had a profound impact on the fields of psychiatry, anthropology, archaeology, literature, philosophy, and religious studies. Jung was the son of a Protestant clergyman, and his early life was marked by a religious education, which would later play a significant role in his work. He was a solitary child, often retreating into his own thoughts, where he basked in introspection and deep thinking.
I was like that.
It was the experience of creating an inner and rich world inside his creative psyche that led Jung to study medicine and eventually work as a research scientist at the Burg-Holzli Psychiatric Hospital.
So that's the caduceus, or whatever you want to call it, the Hermetic freaking symbol logo. Countless other representations of this as well with Mercury and Hermes and all that other stuff. But this is a symbol of commerce. And there's also other representations of this as well, possibly being like not just commerce, but there's negative and positive. Like this is like there's negative and positive in everything, but like there's also people that take this as a negative symbol, and some people take it as a symbol of commerce. Like I said 5 times already.
In Zurich, under Jung.
And it's the rod of Asclepius that is the healing rod with like the one serpent going up the rod.
Bloiler, a pioneer in the study of schizophrenia. While at the hospital, Jung became acquainted with the work of Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis.
Yeah. Right. I rewind my video for like my friggin' take on Freud.
Intrigued by Freud's theories, Jung began corresponding with him in 1906, and their intellectual exchange marked the beginning of a close collaboration. Freud, impressed by Jung's intellect and creativity, saw him as his successor in the psychoanalytic movement. However, their relationship soured over the years as Jung began to develop his own theoretical framework, which diverged from Freud's emphasis on the sexual nature of the unconscious. In 1912, Jung published Symbols of Transformation, a work that marked the beginning of his break from Freudian psychoanalysis. This publication detailed Jung's evolving theories, which focused on the collective unconscious, archetypes, and the process of individuation. The collective unconscious refers to the universal psychological structures shared by all humans, inherited from our ancestors and passed down through generations. Archetypes are the powerful symbols and images that arise from the collective unconscious and manifest in dreams, myths, and cultural forms. Individuation is the process of realizing one's true self by integrating the conscious and unconscious aspects of the psyche, ultimately leading to psychological wholeness. Jung's approach to psychology differed from Freud's in several key ways.
It's the firmament with the stars within, peeking out into the like from outside the cosmos, which we can't actually do, but that connection, our mind, with the head sticking out. To me, this interpretation would be that this is our connection or our link from our avatar, our three-dimensional, well, not three-dimensional. This is a multi-dimensional. We are multi-dimensional beings, but our physical entity is what experiences or what occupies this cosmos, this light and motion that we're experiencing here on this flat plane of inertia. But what links our subconscious or our higher level of consciousness that's beyond this cosmos to this cosmos, right? So like that's the bridge that's gapped. And you see even here as well, I'm seeing like the sun and the moon are also within this firmament, which I also believe to be a series of like zeros and ones, binary coding and digital coding, cellular that intelligently designed, like literally everything, every molecule, visible, non-visible light, the gases, all that stuff. It's all intelligently created. And even within the different states and matters that it occupies as well is also very fascinating. There's a tree within. Also, another thing I want to fucking fudging talk about is everyone's talking about the heat. The heat. Temperatures are getting hotter, right? Like they're saying this everywhere. And what everyone is saying that I know, and myself, not everyone that I know is saying this, but a lot of people, especially within the truther community, we all know this. When you shred trees and destroy plant life and soil and stuff like that, like these fucking ecosystems, okay, there's no way of having that oxygen carbon dioxide exchange, having these ecosystems where even with this plant life, this provides us with like solar protection, like. And so, and then helps with that, like the atmospheric filtering and stuff like that. And so, like even within Ontario, the province I'm in right now, there are people, these fucking idiots that shredded millions of trees just in the last few years alone. Did nothing with the materials. They actually just destroyed them like fucking toothpicks, like literally shredded with these fucking like the machinery and how many fucking trillions of like dollars of oil and stuff like that was also utilized and stuff like that. Such a waste, such a fucking waste, so disgusting in Canada. And so we're doing that all over, shredding trees and destroying fucking trees. And we've done that in the past as well, which is why our northern regions are completely decimated, okay, and not habitable yet. You know, like we have to re-inhabit these areas, but like with plant life and trees and stuff like that. And we have idiots like Bill Gates that are saying like trees are not good at all. Trees are the fucking answer to literally everything. Not everything, but like the climate stuff, you know, that we're dealing with, and like these temperature variations and all this shit we need to fucking, anyways. Stop shredding the fucking trees. Okay? Please. Because we also need them for our petroleum. Okay. I just can't. There's just so much I can unpack here. This video is already almost 2 fucking hours long.
He was more open to the spiritual aspects of human experience.
Different hemispheres, again, as above, so below, as left, so right. Like these are mirrors of themselves as well. So you've got the duality within this image. I'm just trying to I'm just winging it. You've got a ground tower here, or a beam, whatever you want to call it, and that could be the representation of of harnessing the electrical magnetic energy within this environment. Let's see here, the background, like the rays coming from within. Different levels, orbit, or by darker, and then green. Anyway.
And believed that the unconscious contained not only repressed memories, but also creative and spiritual
This is the zodiacal
resources.
astrological wheel.
Furthermore, Jung recognized the significance of symbolism and mythology, often drawing on these sources to enrich his psychological theories. In his later years, Jung conducted extensive research on Eastern religions and philosophical traditions, which greatly influenced his work on the
even with green beings or blue beings, like this often to me as well, like I felt like it's connected with the chakras. It's connected with the luminaries, the deities, or the prophets, or the titans, or the mythical beings from the past. And so if I look at the green, Libra and Taurus are correlated with it. So is copper, that element, especially when it oxidizes. And then Venus as the luminary, which could possibly be a moon, considered a moon, also has phases. The day of the week associated with it is Friday or Vendredi. It's correlated or associated with the heart chakra, which is the 4th chakra as well. Countless other things as well. And so it's just, this is all interesting.
Psychology of,
and then is this like the tetragrammaton or whatever you want to call it, like the fixed astrological figures, right? Like you've got for fixed, you have Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And so you've got like either an eagle sometimes or scorpion that's represented by the Scorpio, like those could possibly be ego talons. And then you've got like the a human, but like a lion face, and like, let's see, like what else, anyway. So sometimes there's connections as well, like even with mythical beings of not only luminaries but also astrological signs.
Religion. But there is a certain aspect of Jung's life that no one talks about, and that is his connection to the Freemasons, a fraternal organization that traces its origins to the local fraternities of stonemasons in the late medieval period. Just for context, Gnostic teachings revolve around allegorical and symbolic lessons, drawn primarily from the tools and practices of medieval stonemasons, as well as from biblical and classical sources. So, could Jung have been influenced by their teachings? The answer is complex, but the most likely answer is yes. And to prove that, we need to take a deep look at Carl Jung's ancestry. Jung's ancestry on the paternal side cannot be traced back beyond the early 18th century. The Jung family came from Mainz, and it is known that there was a Dr. Carl Jung who died there in 1645. And interestingly, in view of Carl Gustav's own later preoccupations, he was affiliated with the Rosicrucians. But the early part of the family tree comes to an abrupt end in 1688.
So even with the Rosicrucians, with roses, I need to look more into that with the frequencies, waves, and vibrations of the various different flowers and plants and stuff like that. The ones that are more optimal for healing for humans, because there are healing frequencies, or there's frequencies and vibrations that are healing, and there's ones that are damaging, inflammatory to us. And so, with tuning forks or the forks or whatever, that people have done examples with a ball on a string, and when you are at a certain hertz or frequency, when you hit the tuning fork beside another tuning fork, it's between the two. If it's a different frequency, there's no reaction. But when it's the same frequency, there's a reaction of this ball, in the atmosphere, and that causes it to move, like I said. And so this could be seen as something that has there's friction or something within the environment that's causing it to like not have that balance of that, or that homeostasis, whatever you want to call it. And so roses apparently have like a very similar frequency to humans. And so possibly with roses, they could possibly be like create illness or make us more inflamed because it's vibrating at a very close frequency to us. I hope that makes sense. Anyways, I got to look more into this stuff, but it's also something that's very interesting for the rose to be something that is correlated with occult, mystical, alchemical symbols and groups, when it could be something that's possibly not good for you. I don't know. Anyways, it is what it is. There's possibly something to do with the oil of the rose, maybe. I don't know. Question was asked for how long have I been awake? It's really like I would say that experiencing distrust very early on in life makes people like more, I guess, awake or more critical thinkers by virtue of those experiences than others. And so there's already an inherent like questioning of environments or surroundings, if like even within like your like nuclear family or with the primary caregivers, if there was like distrust that was so for whatever reason. It could be minor things, like even like a distrust because they made you believe in Santa Claus and the tooth fairy, and then you figured it out by like a friend at school that these people didn't exist, and then you just like totally lacked trust and faith in your parents, and then like you didn't let them know that you knew, but like let's say the next Christmas they were like playing up Santa Claus again, and you're just like, so it's then and there's like so like, even with that, like there's a lack of respect, or there's a questioning of humans, or like your primary caregivers when they're knowingly deceiving you, and they're propping it up as something that's like entertaining and stuff like that, when it was very much traumatic, you know what I mean, when you learn the truth and it was not by them, right? And so it's like, how can you trust them to tell you the truth, for bigger things? And so again, that's a minor thing. But then I had my brother he's also very, very smart, like an actual genius, like tested and all that stuff. And when he was a teenager, like he was way too smart for his class. And I don't mean to insult anyone. It's just a reality of like, he really put a lot of work and effort into his academics. And it worked. And so he was one of two people from his class that would have to travel like for a few hours just to get like a teacher that would be able to teach them advanced mathematics and advanced sciences and stuff like that, because they were way ahead of the class. Him and this other guy, that they were like best friends, and they would compete with each other, but like they were friggin' brilliant and really into the engineering stuff. They skipped grades and like scholarships to friggin' university outside the province, like you name it. And like anyway, and he corrected an advanced mathematics book, right? Like the calculations that were made or whatever, the result was wrong. And so as a teenager, like he corrected that, and he was like 6 years older than me. And so like for me, I was young, and I'm like, that also was something that literally blew my mind, that like even official mathematics books, right, could be incorrect to me. Like even though it could have been like a typo, like whatever, I don't know the whole situation around it. He knew it was a wrong answer. For whatever reason, it was corrected. And that also like a very early age made me question things. And then my uncles and my aunts, but like they were also very smart people. And so like I would travel, we would see them a lot, or more often than the average person, I guess, especially now when like people are more isolated, unfortunately, and like they're not really big with families raising the kids as a community. But they would also like from the education systems that I was coming from, like they also were calling out the fact that I was actually getting taught incorrect information. So they would ask me questions when we would visit. And they would be like, what are you talking about? Like, no, that's not true. You know what I mean? And then Kathy, like they'd go to my mom and be like, you're like, this is what they're teaching your kids. You know what I mean? And my mom would be like, they're not teaching. I'm like, Mom, like that's literally what they're teaching. And so so even with that, like within my family, like like they would correct information that even like teachers were telling us, right? Like, and for them, it was like very blatant stuff that was wrong. And so, and it wasn't even part of the curriculum, some of this stuff. So he's like, why would they even say that? You know what I mean? Like that's like, and so even with that, like I don't know if it would be awake, but I was definitely someone that was aware that by father their own or not, like people that like had good intentions and stuff like that, like they were teaching things incorrectly to children. And like there's less accountability, like when you deceive children, because everyone friggin' does it with the Santa Claus tooth fairy thing. And so it's like, oh, who cares if we're teaching kids like that, like inaccurate history any of that stuff, or like their own personal bias or agendas, or, you know, like telling them about, you know, wokeism or critical race theory, all this bullshit that's like not even fucking based in reality or truth. And that there's like fucking more than two biological sexes, and like that gender's a spectrum, and that like fucking like there's like 10,000 pounds, and none of this is fucking true, or that men can get pregnant. Like, this is what they're teaching kids nowadays, right? And so like I'm having conversations with my nieces and nephews, because I don't have kids, unfortunately. I wish I did, but I'm like, we're having conversations like, you know, that like men can't get pregnant, right? Like it's different if like very rare, but like there are people that are born hermaphrodites, right? Where they have both and or varying degrees of like reproductive organs or organs of the opposite sex, or of both sexes. What I mean, I don't mean the opposite sex, I mean both of both sexes. But that's also something that's not a choice. That's not something that that they chose, you know, and it's not something that they're being misled about or anything like that, or being groomed into believing. Like there's no affirming going on for, you know what I mean? It's these are things that are, it's very complicated, right? And so like people should not be using that as an excuse to justify mutilation of children that could possibly be just going through phases, or really just getting incorrect information from the educators, or even friggin' Netflix, from social media, from mainstream media outlets, from the news, from our friggin' cabinet officials, and people that are getting propped up in the media that are blatantly lying because they're lobbyists and propagandists.
In that year, during Louis XIV's siege of Mainz, the municipal archives took a direct hit from cannon fire and were burned to the ground, destroying all previous records of the genealogical tree. Thus, their history proper begins with Jung's great-grandfather, the physician Franz Ignaz Jung. What is known for certain is the identity and story of Jung's great inspiration, his grandfather Carl Gustav, who was born in 1794. Carl Gustav attended Heidelberg University, where he studied medicine, though his first love was poetry. Upon graduation, Carl began his medical career by serving as a surgeon in the Napoleonic Wars. His bravery and skill earned him accolades, as well as a deep understanding of the human condition under extreme circumstances. Following the war, he settled in Basel, Switzerland, where he continued to practice medicine and began to make a name for himself in the local medical community. In 1815, inspired by liberal and nationalistic ideas, he converted from his family's Catholicism to Protestantism and joined the Heidelberg Burschenschaft student fraternity Teutonia. In 1824, he was granted Swiss citizenship and awarded the freedom of the city. In 1828, Jung was installed as rector of the University of Basel, a prestigious position that demonstrated his esteemed reputation in the academic world. But what a lot of people don't know about Carl Gustav is that he was also a Freemason and a venerable member of Grand Lodge Alpina of Switzerland. In fact, between 1850 and 1856, he served as the second Grand Master of the lodge. His son, Ernst Carl Jung, also served as a Grand Master of the lodge between 1884 and 1890. So, as we can see, important members of Carl Jung's family were high-ranking Freemasons, and without a single drop of doubt, their knowledge of the Masonic initiatory practices and teachings influenced him. In fact, Carl Jung was more in touch with the masculine side of his family in his early days. Jung's mother, Emily Preiswerk, suffered from periodic bouts of depression and was occasionally hospitalized due to her condition. Her emotional instability had a profound impact on young Carl, who later described his mother as having two distinct personalities, one warm and nurturing, and the other distant and unpredictable. This is important because it strengthens the argument that Jung was influenced by the masculine role models in his family. So, was Carl Jung himself a Freemason? Sadly, we can't answer this question. The simple answer is that we simply don't know. But it is a fact that throughout his life he spent a great deal of time among them, and his work might have been influenced by their teachings. Let's take a look at some Jungian concepts to strengthen this argument even further. In his book, Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Carl Jung writes, "I began to understand the goal of psychic development is the self. There is no linear evolution. There is only a circumambulation of the self. Uniform development exists at most at the beginning. Later, everything points toward the center. This insight gave me stability, and gradually my inner peace returned." In Jungian psychology, circumambulation is the process of moving around a central point to an object, both literally and metaphorically. In the context of Jung's theories, this concept is often associated with the process of individuation, where an individual strives to integrate their conscious and unconscious aspects to achieve psychological wholeness. Circumambulation, as a psychological process, involves revolving around the self, the central organizing principle of the psyche, which represents the totality of an individual's conscious and unconscious experiences. The psychological process involves revolving around the self, the central organizing principle.
So you've got the zodiac signs as well that are correlated with also certain parts of the body. Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra. Reproductive organs for Scorpio, genitals, usually. For fertility.
Principle of the psyche, which represents the totality of an individual's conscious and unconscious experiences. By engaging in self-exploration and self-discovery, an individual gradually integrates the various aspects of their personality, such as their ego, persona, shadow, anima/animus, and the self. This process allows the individual to maintain a balance between opposing psychological forces and achieve a greater sense of wholeness and harmony. Jung believed that the process of circumambulation could be observed in various cultural and religious practices such as ritual.
The cube, the black's cube or square, whatever you want to call it, if you want to talk about like two-dimensional, three-dimensional, whatever. That is also like a representation of Saturn, a luminary. There's also like sacred geometric patterns that are formed. Like also fun fact with the square, like there's 90-degree angles, a level, 90-degree angle, 90-degree angle, 90-degree angle. So like there's even like the circle within the square, within like the whatever, with the symbols that are shown in plain sight. Also like with the black, with the absorption of the magnetic rays with that as well.
Myths and mandalas. These practices often involve
fire, air, water, earth. So also with the solstices and the equinoxes, it's a fun time to talk about this now too as well. Like I don't know how many people have talked about this, but you've got where we're within the when the sun is at the highest, lowest, or at the equatorial points during the spring and fall equinox. You've got like you've got mutable signs, you've got fixed, you've got cardinal, and then you've got like even with like elemental breakdowns of the zodiacal signs as well. So you've got like earth, air, water, and fire. Some people also say ether as the fifth element, but that's something that encompasses everything and everyone, right? That's the mana or the energy or all of that stuff. It's the same stuff in my opinion. But when you go when you're transitioning from Pisces into Aries, you're going from a water sign to a fire sign, right? And then transitioning from a fire sign into an earth, and so on. And then when you transition from Gemini to Cancer, when the sun is at its highest point in the sky, on or around the 21st of June of every single year, you've got an air sign going into a water sign, and then a water sign going into a fire. So you've got an air sign going into a water sign, which is when the sun is at the highest point in the sky, longest amount of day, shortest amount of night, and then again with going from Virgo to Libra, you're going from an earth sign to an air sign. And so earth, air, and then Capricorn to Aquarius. So from Sagittarius to Capricorn when you have like the sun transitioning on or around 21st or 22nd of December, depending on the hemisphere you're in. You have it where you have like the longest amount of night, shortest amount of day, and the sun at its lowest point, and it stays at its lowest point for 3 days. But that's going from fire to earth. That transition of elementals as well, from fire to earth. And then you're going from water to fire for the spring equinox. And then you're going from air to water during the summer. And then you're going from earth to air. I don't know if that's interesting to anyone, but another thing.
Symbolic representations of wholeness, unity, and the reconciliation of opposites. Jung writes.
So even with that, to me, like when I look at this, I could see like are they talking about a season, because the phoenix is also represented by the sun, and that's and or God, depending on who you're talking to, but like in a lot of representations. But then also you've got like even with like a sun moon, this could be that as well, or different or electricity, magnetism, feminine, masculine energies, gravitating energy, radiating energy, and you've got the integrating, disintegrating, expanding, collapsing, etc., yin and yang. And and then you have like, let's say this is a fire sign. This could also be possibly a fire sign and an air sign. So then this could also possibly tell you, like maybe like the day of the year, right, or the season.
Often involves symbolic representations of wholeness, unity, and the reconciliation of opposites. Jung writes, "The union of opposites on a higher level of consciousness is not a rational thing, nor is it a matter."
And then yes, you had this what they're calling like the hexagon, or the honeycomb symbol in the back, or the Star of David, or the Solomon's seal, whatever you want to call it. Like it's so many different cultures, it's named different things, but again, it's all different symbolic representations of like the same thing. Astronomical sciences. I would say I'm a spiritual scientist.
Will. It is a process of psychic development that expresses itself in symbols. Jung saw practices as expressions of the human psyche's natural inclination towards self-integration and the pursuit of psychological balance. And curiously enough, one of the most profound moments of the initiatory ceremony in a Masonic lodge is a certain rite known as circumambulation. The etymology of the word circumambulation can be traced back to Latin origins. It is derived from two Latin components.
See, this is the LARPing I'm talking about, right? The live action role playing. There's people that are millionaires and billionaires that do this shit, and they don't realize they're the same as the people that do the LARPing, like all over the place in the world. That there's like conventions and stuff like that, like Comic-Con events. Like you're all like, everyone thinks they're so friggin' different, but we're a lot more similar than we are different.
Circum and
Well, except we're not criminals. I'm not saying these people here are criminals. I'm saying there's a lot of people from within are, and they have the wealth, the assets, the resources to do a lot of damage like they're doing.
Circum means around or about, indicating encircling or surrounding something. Ambulare is a Latin verb that means to walk or to move. In short, it is the act of circling around a sacred object. The interpretation of this ritual is typically understood as a symbolic depiction of life's great journey. We, as humans, enter the world in a state of ignorance and vulnerability, reliant on others for guidance and support. Throughout our lives, we face numerous challenges, dangers, and fears. Circumambulation is often described as a representation of this experience. Although this interpretation does not conflict with facts or reason, it is likely that the ritual holds a deeper meaning. Circumambulation is an ancient and nearly universal practice.
This is Forces Occults Jean Mamis Deutsch Films, 1935, 1943. So what you're seeing right now, this is not an actual like LARPing event in play with real characters. This is a movie. This is a representation though, like it's showing you what people do. And I've also shared actual videos that were of people that were that did sneak cameras in that show these events as well, like in videos of the masses. And I highly encourage people to take a look at my old work. And if you're on YouTube or X, I get my videos deleted a lot, and I get a lot of strikes. And so I don't even have like a quarter of the videos on YouTube as I do on Rumble. And on Rumble, I'm Dawn, DAWN 189.
Egyptians employed it in various religious ceremonies, such as carrying images of Isis or Osiris around temples or altars. Similar solemn rituals were
Isis, Osiris, Horus, these are all representations of the sun, the moon, and God, or Allah, or the Creator, or Yahweh, etc.
conducted by the Jews, who would encircle the sacrifices, and the Arabs, who shared numerous customs with the Jews. Even today, many Brahmin sects incorporate this ritual. A priest must circle a sacred tree or pool during their initiation. Upon waking early in the morning, the priest faces the sun and walks in a circle, maintaining the center to their right. The laws of Manu dictate that in a wedding ceremony, the bride should circle the domestic hearth. For ancient Buddhists, such a ceremony held great significance, leading them to construct stone galleries around shrines for pilgrims and worshippers to circumambulate the image Buddha. It is likely that Freemasonry has utilized the rite of circumambulation from its inception. In one of the ancient York rituals, the apprentice, demonstrating their worthiness to become a fellow, would move from one station to another, undergoing different tests by the master and the wardens. The rite of circumambulation symbolizes the process of harmoniously adapting to one's surroundings. As mentioned earlier, in Jungian psychology, circumambulation is associated with the process of individuation, where an individual strives to integrate their conscious and unconscious aspects to achieve psychological wholeness. While Freemasons use this practice in their initiatory rites, Jung described the process in a more academic way, suited for his psychological studies. But the similarities between Jungian psychology and the royal art taught in Freemasonry don't end here. Inherent in Jung's psychology is the belief that life is not simply a random biological occurrence, but rather a structured and purposeful process. Based on this, the numerous challenges we face in life, such as trauma, loss, anxiety, depression, despair, and illness, are
So even with the arrow, can that represent or symbolize like Sagittarius, like the archer, you know, with the fall of the sun, like at the end of Sagittarius going into Capricorn? I don't know.
Essential, albeit difficult components of the transformative workings of the
Even different colors and gases that are represented and shown, like there's symbology in that as well. And that looks like a heart. That's interesting. Radiating. What does that say? Vistas. Anyway, I gotta look more into that.
The human psyche. We often mistakenly view ourselves as victims of our symptoms and suffering. However, these personal struggles are at the core of many archetypal themes and mythological patterns. Acknowledging the mythic aspects underlying our individual experiences dissolves our self-centered claims to life's joys and sufferings, connecting us more authentically with the human experience. By focusing on the shared aspects of existence instead of the distinguishing features of personality, we liberate ourselves and those around us. In this regard, the objectives of Jungian analytical psychology and Freemasonry are similar, as the communal bonds of brotherhood stem from a dedication to our collective human fate, rather than the...
Okay, so it's a little weird. You know, what the fuck's going on there?
Self-centered aim of refining and preserving one's personal identity. Both analytical psychology and Masonry necessitate a spiritual sensitivity without being religions themselves. For many individuals, a spiritual commitment can only exist within the
Swords, horses.
dogmatic framework of a religion. Jungian psychoanalysis, like Masonry, is compatible with all religions because it acknowledges that existence itself is a phenomenon with spiritual aspects in which we all partake. On a similar note, analytical psychology draws from a variety of cultural and religious
Atlas, giants owe to that as well. And
traditions, illustrating the same transformative process in human beings. Additionally, Jung also spent a great deal of time researching alchemy and deciphering its allegorical teachings. He viewed alchemy as a rich symbolic system that could be used to understand the human psyche. For Jung, alchemy is a precursor to modern psychology, offering insights into the process of individuation. the integration of the conscious and unconscious aspects of the self. Jung believed that alchemical texts and images were not merely about the physical transformation of substances, but also about the inner transformation.
So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So even within like some of these symbols, like for some reason you got like the pyramid with the with the rose, whatever. It could be rouge, the color red. It could be just like a misinterpretation of the color spectrum, the visible and non-visible light, like the ultraviolet or infrared light, whatever. But even within when I'm looking at the original luminaries as well, like from inward to outward, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fields. You've got the center. You've got the firmament where there's luminaries. Triangles that make up like the crown. Like there's a lot of sacred geometry like within the coding of this multidimensional simulation or artificial reality, this electromagnetic cosmos.
Formation of the human psyche. In the Red Book, one of the most fascinating works that he wrote after having experienced a direct and intense confrontation with the unconscious, Jung writes, "Whoever speaks in primordial images speaks with 1,000 voices. He enthralls and overpowers, while at the same time he lifts the idea he is seeking to express out of the occasional and the transitory into the realm of the ever-enduring." Jung saw alchemists as true mystics engaged in spiritual quest, exploring the depths of the unconscious mind to achieve personal growth and self-realization. Paracelsus, a Swiss physician, alchemist, lay theologian, and philosopher of the German Renaissance, also beautifully highlighted this aspect when he said, "The alchemical transmutation is impossible unless the alchemist himself is in the process of transformation." Jung identified several key alchemical concepts that he believed were relevant to psychological development: nigredo or blackening, albedo or whitening, and rubedo or reddening.
So even like with like I can make like in my own head, like I come up with my own things, but it reminds me of like that rice, those rice beakers. There's a lot, I mean, beakers like for obviously like multiple different experiments, but where if you had like rice within these different containers, glass containers, whatever, if you would speak negatively to the rice, it would be like for a series of days or weeks, it would mold and decay and stuff like that. Speaking positively or showing love and stuff like that to one of the containers, like it was minimally impacted by its environment, like it wasn't molding or anything like that, like no growth of any of that stuff yet. And then like there was one where it was neglect, like intentional neglect as well, like going to the beaker but then like moving away, like not showing any attention. And then when also like suffering from like really bad like mold and stuff like that as well, right? Like and so I even see this with you've got negative, positive, and then like if the actual rose is at the same frequency as us, maybe that's like that negating property as well, that is also harmful.
Nigredo represents the dark, chaotic, and unconscious state of the psyche. It is the starting of the alchemical process where one becomes aware of one's inner turmoil and the need for transformation. Albedo involves the purification and clarification.
And so even for sonoluminescence, which I've shared the other day, with like degassing various fluids and seeing the sonoluminescence and being like stars in a jar, same stuff.
Psyche. It represents the moments of self-awareness and the recognition of unconscious content, leading to a more balanced state of being. Rubedo, the final stage, symbolizes the integration of the conscious and unconscious aspects of the psyche. In the final stage, the individual achieves a sense of wholeness and self-realization, resulting in the creation of the Philosopher's Stone, which represents the ultimate goal of psychological development and the result of individuation. Jung also emphasized the importance of the union of opposites, or the conjunctio, which is a key concept in both alchemy and his own psychology. Jung writes, "What takes place between light and darkness, what unites the opposites, has a share in both sides, and can be judged just as well from the left as from the right. Without our becoming any the wiser indeed, we can only open up the opposition again. Here only the symbol helps, for in accordance with its paradoxical nature, it represents the tertium, that in logic does not exist, but which in reality is the living truth. He believed that the reconciliation of opposing forces within the psyche, such as masculine and feminine, rational and irrational, or conscious and unconscious, was essential for psychological growth and self-realization. Those who study the royal art of Freemasonry are familiar with these concepts, as well as vitriol, for they are a core part of the Masonic degrees, lectures, and symbolism. So, all of these facts considered, it's fair to assume that Jung was definitely aware of.
There's so much symbology in here. Oh my God. 1486, Ed grip. With the hat, it's possibly like has Mercury lining the beard.
The allegorical and symbolical rites of Freemasonry. His work, however, takes a more academic approach, which provides an open foundation for those who seek out self-realization and knowledge, which leads some to think that he was not bound to any oath, and that fact alone would exclude him from the ranks of any secretive society. But no matter your stance, one thing remains certain. Carl Jung remains one of the most important figures in the realm of psychology and mysticism, and his discoveries and theories will, and already play a key role in humanity's journey toward rediscovering the truth we once knew, but at some point forgotten. Now, all of this considered, I'm also interested to hear your opinion. Do you think Carl Jung's work was deeply influenced by the teaching of occult societies and...
Yeah. And yeah, I've come to a lot of the same conclusions as him, and I'm not bought and paid for. I'm not a propagandist. What is going on? Oh yes. Again, I'm already a million hours in, and I do read a lot. I used to read a lot more actually, but like even when I was a kid, I actually won reading awards when I was in elementary school, and I would do book reports and stuff like that on the books, and it was always like science-based books, like or fact-based books, like not the other stuff. It never really interested me, and so I was really much into nature books as well, and animals, and yes, friggin' planets. I've been naive before, so on certain things, right, that I thought were real, and have since obviously woken up with that as well. But that's why people need to continue to read and educate themselves throughout their lives, right? Because there's a lot of stuff that you think that you know as a kid or were taught as a kid, not realizing that it's because like a lot of this stuff was just like very much not touched on or elaborated on at all. Makes no sense when you look at it like from like another lens, an older lens or more experienced lens, and then you can just figure out like just how friggin' down the rabbit hole like you could go, right? And so like even with this flat earth stuff, like the video that was just playing, I'll just share it as an example. It's called Nassholes. And it's bit shoot again, but it's like over 3 hours of like a lot of footage that's like that's showing just like how fake and it is, right? Like the stuff that NASA's sharing, and like the CGI imaging, like the green room stuff, like the zero gravity chambers that they're doing literally just like within the atmosphere with those friggin' like with those airplane companies that they're using. I forget what the name is again. Anyway, I've shared that on videos. Dave Weiss talks about it. But yeah, like I'm not going to share this video. But it's just a series of like going over the data and the evidence and stuff like that. So anyway, on that note, I will leave it at that, and I'm gonna have to walk my friggin'. I might go for it like it's snowing now, but I might do I have a mountain bike, so I might go on a mountain bike in the snow with the dogs instead of just walking. And yeah, NASA also does a lot of their training and footage underwater. And they just edit out a lot, or try to edit out all the water bubbles and stuff like that. But like, there's even people that were supposed to be in space and they drown, and they almost drowned. And now within the suits, they have like their scuba gear stuff. They're like, people, like, yeah, like I just, it's crazy. Like the world is crazy. So I could talk about this stuff for friggin' hours, but I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of their day.